debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room. Witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punch.
Mark in the month of November. How are you? Good morning and welcome to Monday. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, and C.T. Muga and Ndu Oko are in the building. C.T. Muga, how are you? How was your weekend?
Good.
Good to both.
Good.
Very.
And not only am I in the building, I am also in the room.
Well, where? Uh-huh. And Ndu Oko?
Yes.
In front of the mic.
There you go.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Weekend ilikuwaje?
Ilikuwa mzuri sana.
Mambo bam bam.
Yes, meaning surely okay.
Yes, hiyo.
Ndio. Hapo hapo.
Hapo.
Kama vile nilivyosema.
Na wewe unaendeleaje?
Mimi naendelea sawa sawa.
Okay.
Sukuma gurudumu la maisha. Namshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu Maulana Jalali kwa baraka zake alizonitunukia asubuhi hii ya njema ya leo kuanzia wiki mpya. Yes.
Thank you very much, Eric. Okay. We were doing very well until we got to the Maulana part.
And the Jalali.
Yes. So, I'm assuming all that just means you are well.
Yeah, me too.
But
I'm good.
But you're giving due reverence to the Almighty for
the blessings of a new week. Yep. When you wake up nowadays, or any day anyway, you just wake up and you have a fresh new day, you thank God.
No, you actually do. In fact, as you're saying it, I was thinking about that particular quality that the Almighty has. Omnipotence. Such words can't be translated into vernacular. And I remember as a child, my grandmother, we found it extremely hilarious when we were translating what my grandmother would pray for. And essentially, when she was asking for God in his omnipotence, his all-seeing and all-wisdom, it translated to God who has extremely big eyes.
Wow. That's what you heard.
He sees everything.
Sees everything. Sees big eyes.
There's some mannerisms that actually just come into play when it comes to praying. There are ways in which people start a prayer. That, this is how people start. How did your grandmother always start her prayer?
My grandmother was a unique.
It's a specific sentence that
she spoke to God to the point where you thought God was actually sitting there in the corner in the room.
That's not his.
And then the adjectives.
But
She preceded. God was never mentioned by name. But all his attributes were mentioned before she now went on into the dialogue of what she wanted to discuss with God. But he was called this, he was called the other, he was called the other. All the omnipotence. You see, this is the problem with one word. He doesn't quite get it.
yeah.
She would say of all the wonderful things he has done, the bringing of rain and sunshine, and then use low words that I'd never even heard of in my life. So, there we are.
Okay.
But I think it follows a pattern that people use even nowadays when it comes to prayers.
Yep.
But if you think about it, it's part of our culture as human beings. If you happen to be in a position of authority, people never just call you by name.
They'll go round.
Mheshimiwa,
Kiongozi, Mpendwa.
There's a lady who used to sell pens
Mteule wa Bwana.
a certain place in Kisumu. And for the longest time, I had no idea what she was talking about. She'd always say, Msmewa jambo. And I'm thinking, and I'd look behind. Little did I know,
It is Msmewa.
I was the Msmewa.
Umepandishwa cheo.
It was you.
It was myself.
All right, welcome to today's show. We will have a lot of conversations today. COVID-19 it's really, really spreading in the community, and people are dying from COVID-19. Doctors issued a strike notice yesterday saying, look, we are exposed. Our members have died. More than 10 doctors have died in a week, and that is not something that we want to take lightly. And so doctors are raising that conversation. We will raise that conversation. We'll be speaking to the leadership of the Doctors Union, and we'll also be speaking to an experienced medic who will be joining us. This is, the vice chairperson of the Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, plus also the dean of the Aga Khan University, Aga Khan Hospital University. It's called what?
University Hospital.
Aga Khan University Hospital.
Yes.
That one. Yes. And then we also go into the community and ask you, do you know somebody who has fallen ill to COVID-19? Do you know someone who has passed on from COVID-19? And just looking at your neighborhood, how are people behaving? Are they behaving as if they know that somebody has died of COVID and therefore it's real this time? Or are they not? This and more conversations, but let's begin where we always begin, looking at these numbers and where we are at in the country. What numbers were announced yesterday?
Well, okay. So we're looking at global figures of 54,810,316. If we look specifically at Kenya, before we come back to other countries where some staggering things happened over the weekend, let's take a look at Kenya, where now Kenya has recorded in totality 70,245 cases of COVID-19 and 1,269 deaths. If we look at the numbers also that were recorded yesterday, 972 new cases and 20 deaths were recorded in the country yesterday. On the 14th of November, which was Saturday, 1,080 new cases and 41 new deaths. So over the weekend, Kenya recorded 41 new deaths and 1,819 cases. 2,019 cases between Saturday and Sunday. And that's what we're looking at. And we see still that, yes, as you said, community transmission is continuing. It's becoming now where there's a lot that has been said. There are a lot of eyebrow, again, raising moments, and people are starting to get worried only now about the rising number of cases. And it would seem that people are being a little bit more careful. But we'll have discussions about that. It's also in the same time that we see 38 Form 4 students at Carbonet High School in Baringo County tested positive for COVID-19. Baringo County Commissioner Henry Wafula said the 38 were among 48 whose samples had been collected for testing last week. And they have now isolated those boys in one dormitory. And they've also tested teachers and non-teaching staff. One school, 38 people tested positive, not suspected to be COVID-19 positive, but having tested positive. All right?
Yep.
So those are the kind of numbers that we are seeing. It was also in the same breath a couple of weeks ago where we saw 46 Form 4 students at Kiptoim Secondary School in Mogotio in same Baringo County having walked out of the institution for fear of contracting COVID, and we saw that there was some kind of mischievous happenings going on. Well, they've still not gone back to school, and Ezran Wainaina, who's the principal, said the students were yet to return to school and they were asking their parents to please send them back. But these students and parents are worried about the COVID-19 status.
You know, this is a conversation we actually must have in great depth.
For sure.
And today. Because they are the norms that we understand about COVID. They are the numbers we keep referring to. These aren't numbers. These are people dying.
Yes. They're not just the statistics,
and now
they're humans.
It's reaching alarm status because people who are prominent, doctors, are passing away. What about the many, many others whom no one knows about, no one talks about?
For sure. And you know, the worrying thing is, this is the worrying thing, that some of the stories that we've heard is that by the time somebody presents themselves to hospital, the symptoms have actually taken over their system. And we've heard a little bit too much in terms of those who went hospital hopping, as it were, looking for what? Oxygen.
Yep.
And they die not because they couldn't have been saved, but because a vital facility was unavailable for them to get treatment. And that is the reason why these people are dying. How many times did we hear that if somebody had just been able to get on an oxygen machine, that's all they needed to survive? It's a bit pathetic.
There are people who have survived because of that ventilator.
That's what they
because
needed.
they've been on it for the longest time, and that's what until they've recovered.
Yeah.
So in the absence of that, clearly,
This is why people are dying. Let's take a look around the world before we go into this. Specifically at the United States, right? Now at 11,366,379 COVID-19 cases. If we look at the cases that they recorded over the weekend, staggering, the highest number ever. Yesterday, 134,249. The day before, 184,020 cases. In the US, and then the day before that was 159,000. So I'm sorry, that day was 187,907 new cases, and on the same day, 1,416 deaths. The following day, 159,000 cases, and the day after that, which was yesterday now, 138,249 cases. Now, if we want to look at how things are, hospitalizations have hit records. So we're not talking about people who are asymptomatic. Hospitalizations have hit record numbers in the following states: Indiana, Arkansas, Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Carolina, North Dakota, New Hampshire, Ohio. I mean, goodness gracious, Oregon, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, Wyoming, West Virginia, and Wisconsin have hit record highs, hospitalizations, people presenting to hospital who need to be on a ventilator or are suffering from symptoms so severe that they cannot be taken care of at home.
All right. What are the state governments saying? Is there a push for the state governments to order a lockdown?
Yes.
And such?
So some states went into some measures as of yesterday. So you have states like New York, for example, who've said that in-person learning shut down as from today, Monday. Other states in the Midwest having said they're going to set in an in-state curfew, and after 8 p.m., nobody will be outside. You must be at home. Restaurants and bars closed from 10 p.m., whereby people would stay until 1 in the morning, closed till 10 p.m., and really considering a shutdown of schools in the Great Lakes area. So you have states like Michigan, Minnesota, who are saying schools will shut down.
So
because
none of them is even contemplating like a proper shutdown like France.
A complete lockdown? No, not at this point.
Okay. So they're still there. They're still in that position where they want to say,
Still
all right,
facing, and this is
this
one of the things that Fauci said when he made the statement that he made yesterday, to say that, we're still teeter-tottering on the maybe.
Yep.
Maybe we should do this, but look, people are presenting to hospital, and we had the highest number ever recorded with almost 200,000 cases in one day. Never seen such high numbers. And then, still playing with decisions in terms of what should be done.
It's an issue of just all government, and they may want to look at it and bring in the partisanship into it. But no, I'm sure there are some of those states which where the governor is not a Republican or a pro-Trump per se, but they still need to make a decision. For example, if you look at New York, the governor has been very, very vocal, and even the mayor, on what they want to do with New York. But now they're just, getting back to the point of saying, let's reduce, let's order no in-person learning, let's impose a curfew after 10 p.m. And such. And yet they could do a lot more.
Remember when we were discussing Sweden in an earlier time, one of the things that anyone who was in government in Sweden faced was their laws don't just permit you to just make any draconian rule that you want to make. You cannot. At the end of the day, you can advise, state, and then you leave it to the individuals.
The people will decide.
They will decide. They will decide how they're going to go about this business. America is really not that far off. You can trample on very many civil rights by just simply imposing that.
Yeah, sure. Even this whole business of wearing a mask.
Yes.
You're trampling
It
on
became a legal
civil
issue.
liberties
Became a
and
big
how
one.
they're able to.
Yep.
Right?
So really the enemy here is not even the disease. The enemy is the actual freedom that particular country is known for.
Yeah.
It's the freedom now that is getting in the way of their wellness.
Yeah.
We do see some European countries as of today, specifically Greece, Lithuania, shutting down schooling. Greece going into a full country lockdown now, and that's no movement whatsoever. We also see that they suffer the brunt of all of some of these community transmission because of the fact that there was a huge influx of tourists during the summer months, and because of people moving around and such now, and they've all gone back to their countries, right? And then left a lot of the Grecians with this. So they've gone into full lockdown. And when we say full lockdown, it's full lockdown, nobody moving.
Think of holiday season during summer.
Yeah, I mean, look at
Think of the
Santorino, for
beach-
example,
think of
places
the-
like that.
Yeah, think of the beaches. But before the beaches, depending on how they arrive there, if it's train, if it's aeroplanes, if it's the beach itself, I mean, can you think of a better melting pot for the disease to proliferate than that? And people are on holiday mood.
Yep.
Speaking of holiday
It
mode,
happens.
in the next week, we're going into Thanksgiving in the United States, and people are complaining and saying, you can't stop us from traveling.
Yeah. There you go.
Why don't we put it this way?
People
We can't
make their own
we-
decisions.
We can't stop you from dying either.
Yeah. 16 minutes after 6. It's time for us to take a look at the weather, and then we start looking at the headlines. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. Our live stream is up, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Say hello to us. We will say good morning to you.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay,
The
this Monday,
weather
we're looking at
with-
partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, currently at 18 degrees. We'll go to high of 23 and lows of 17 today. Mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 14, highs of 23 and lows of 14. It's also partly cloudy in Nyeri at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Clear skies in Eldoret at 12, highs of 22 and lows of 11. It's 19 degrees, and in Kisumu, rain showers this morning, highs of 26 and lows of 18. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 19, where the highs will be 25 and lows of 14 today. Also rain showers in Mombasa at 25, the high will be 29 and lows of 24. It's raining in Malindi as well, highs of 23 and lows of 16 today. Light rain also coming down in Kampala at 20, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is sunny this morning at 26. We'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 25. In Johannesburg, clear skies at 18. It'll warm up to 26 and lows of 16. It's raining in Lagos at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 23. And that's the temperature in Kinshasa at the moment, where rain is coming down at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 22. Looking to Beijing, that has a haze over the city at 11 degrees, highs of 13 and lows of 8. It's mostly cloudy in Paris at 11, highs of 13 and lows of 9. We're in London at mostly cloudy conditions, 10 degrees. The high will be 13 today. 13 showers and rain, 13 degree and rain showers in New York. The highs will be 17 and lows of 10.
It's 20 after 6. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Who's online?
Oh, Samuel Tonisho is tuned in from Sangalo Institute of Science and Technology, Bungoma main campus.
Wewe at Sangalo Institute of Science and Technology.
Bungoma.
Bungoma main campus.
Yes. Tuned in this morning, hoping for an awesome show. Good morning to
So
you.
it's called what? CIST.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Cyst.
Okay.
Okay. Murimi wa Mukadhu. Okay. I'm sorry for butchering your name. Mukakudhi.
Excellent. See, you got it second time.
Right. Tuned in. Funny guys. Tuned in from the Institute in United States of Kutus, Kirinyaga County. Mike Kiburu spiced in from Nyeri. Good morning. And Alex Mbogo live from Nyeri also. Gilbert Nyabikoro tuned in from Nairobi, Kangundo Road, Njiro. And Kenyan Lugari boy listening from Outer Imara Daima. Interesting spots.
Outer Imaradaima.
Yeah.
All right. Where is Outer Imaradaima?
Somewhere.
Sawa.
You know, I'm going to ask you where the inner is.
Yeah. The inner one would assume would be the Imaradaima
Itself.
itself.
So now the extension is now the outer.
Outer. Outer Imara.
All right.
Welcome, everybody, and we're glad that you've joined us this morning. Karibuni to the show. CT Muga as we begin. Before we look at the headlines, let's hear today's
Why
proverb.
don't we listen to today's proverb?
Yes.
Right. Ears that do not listen. No, let me start again. Ears that do not listen accompany the head when it is chopped
Cut off. I have heard that before. Yeah. I think my dad said it to us when we were younger.
He passed on the message, right?
He did.
Did you actually get the message?
Oh my.
Ears
That's
that
why
do
I
not
remember
listen
it. Because he started and I said, I've heard this
Accompany
before.
the head when it's
Chopped off.
being chopped off.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Very clear. Very clear. It's a good one for a Monday. Let's look at the headlines. Where do you want to start?
There's so much, my goodness. Okay. The front page of the Daily Nation, glaring, reveals scandal of 500,000 ghost pupils. You thought ghost pupils were only at City Hall? They're not. Money heist. Taxpayers have been losing billions of shillings every year after head teachers and corrupt education officials seeking to line their own pockets inflated enrollment numbers used by the government to disperse funds for the free primary education program. So, the details of this interesting story are as follows.
And tell us who discovered this.
I will tell you. Okay. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha himself has revealed this is after head teachers and corrupt Education Ministry officials inflated enrollment numbers used by the government to disperse funds for the free primary education program. In what appears to be the reincarnation of FPE scandals that claimed careers of past education ministers, Professor Magoha says he has uncovered an inflation of the number of primary school children by a staggering 529,997. The program has become a minefield that has either claimed careers or tainted the reputations of top ministry figures who have at one time had to answer questions on theft of FPE funds under their watch. They include Professors George Saitoti, Samongeri, Karega Mutahi, and Awichio Olwen. The latest revelation was contained in a statement the CS released on Saturday while defending his abrasive style of management and why it has been effective. According to the CS, the anomaly was unmasked by the task force on implementation of competency-based curriculum that collected data from all learning institutions in the country. And according to him, at Ayani Primary School in Kibra, due diligence identified an inflation of numbers of learners from 8.47 million to 9 million. The shortfall of over 500,000 learners has led to the saving of 752 million shillings annually.
So this is after they rolled out that electronic registration.
Yes.
What was it called? Was it NIMS? No, it wasn't NIMS.
NIMS. Yes, it was NIMS.
NIMS.
Yes.
NIMS is not the Huduma number one?
They're all names.
No,
Just depends on this is names
for education, yeah.
Outer education version. Names.
Okay. Well, you know, when this was happening, remember there was a pushback, a lot of pushback from head teachers who were saying, no, this thing is not working, this thing is not the best. And we discussed it here and said, come on. Yes, this system, when you go digitalization this way, when you say that you must input all the details, the child's birth certificate, their registration and all, then it means that you are now dealing with a specific human being, which now means that a head teacher cannot claim, I have X number of pupils in my school.
And you can't prove it in the
and
database.
you cannot prove it in the database. So this was bound to happen. It was definitely bound to show there was some inflation in one place or the other.
When you consider that head teachers have to communicate with the education, the leaders in the education department, and when you consider that many people who are in those departments were once upon a time themselves teachers.
Head teachers, yes.
So it isn't difficult to figure out that the possibilities of collusion become greater and greater. Because really, it requires someone who understands how that system works and someone who operates the system.
Yep.
Now, if the two collude, you'll be hard-pressed to figure out what's actually going on.
It was going to be a very easy one to get done. Even now, that figure of 500,000 may just be the lower side of it. If they roll out this system fully, because I don't think actually they managed to roll it out fully. Once they roll it out fully, you'll find a lot more, a higher number.
Eric, by the time this thing hits the headlines and you're reading about it, just pause for a second and ask yourself, what else do you think has been happening and what is happening even right now before this thing comes out?
Yes.
And what eventually led to it coming out? Because it isn't as though this information was known the day before yesterday or on Friday and it's being published now. No, this is something that has been known for some time. Around the time when the story was being written, being investigated about, what do you think has gone on in that period of time? And what else have they found? But more importantly, what else have they not been able to unearth?
Well, at the same time as we were talking about this, the same report that the CS was launching also shows that CBC and rising enrollment has pushed the education budget to 768 billion shillings. This is from 625 billion shillings in 2016-2017 to the financial year 2018-2019. It went to 768.5 billion. That's over 130 billion shillings extra. The booklet is an outcome of the Fatuma Shege-led Curriculum Review Task Force that was formed by Magoha to gather data on education that will help roll out the CBC. The new data shows that during the last financial year, 53% and 33% of spending in the education sector were from the national government and households, respectively. So households have also seen a rise in how much they are spending for education. So, you see, it's also basically just showing our education is becoming more and more expensive.
And this was at that time, right? Without any new components having been added.
That somebody was swift. Carry on.
No, I'm saying so now with them wanting to include grade 5 in the coming year, so it's bound to be even more expensive. Because this was as of now, right? Things haven't reached where they are at the moment with the introduction of the CBC until grade 4. Come 2020, where are we now? I can't even remember.
We're in 2020.
We're in 2020.
Yeah.
Come 2021.
Currently, yes.
Come 2021, there's a rollout of CBC now into as far as grade 5. So what it's going to do is going to attract an even higher cost. So your expensive education actually will become even more expensive.
What I am not getting, though, is how CBC has made the cost go up. I am just not understanding why.
Eric, which country do we live in?
In this Kenya of ours.
All right, now.
And CBC has been rolled out in just the
Okay.
lower three classes.
When have you ever heard of anything going down except the benefits that banks and insurance companies mint from us every single year? When have you heard it going down? When?
Okay, but why? What's the increase? What's 100 billion shillings increase? And this is in just 2 financial years.
There will be an increase if you introduce a new system.
Unless you're talking about because of 100% transition, so you basically don't have dropout, or you say there's a higher enrollment.
Oh, for sure. Look, I mean, more and more children are going to school. That's for sure. And you have the 100% transition, but at the same time, you have more and more having. It was last year. It was a year it was 2 years ago, the report came out where it showed that overall in Kenya, more and more parents were sending their children to school because of this. So now you see more children going to school, entering into public schools, for which the government must buffer or support that. I don't know that you can prove down to the last shilling that it was an increase of 100 billion. However, you do find that there was an increased number of children being enrolled in school.
Often when you, if you look at the formation or the formulation of policies like this, there is always a cost element to it. And sometimes what you are being told is the envisionment of what this thing ought to cost. If everything, because you cannot have such a plan and not have a cost element to it.
For sure.
So this is what you eventually see. But then we must interrogate, why that amount? Why that amount?
In 2 years.
In terms of what was spent on what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more news item on school, just really quickly. I know we're going to break. Fees dilemma as Magoha calls meeting on school calendar. So they're meeting today to discuss what the calendar is going to look like. And already, parents have said that if we're going to have shorter school terms, because what is being said is that in the year, you're going to put in 2 years work into a year. If we're going to have shorter school terms and we're going to have, in terms of less information then being put into that time, that school fees also should be considered to be taken down if that's going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
No?
No. It's not going to happen. The thing is, every time we've managed a major feat in the Ministry of Education, like, say, the free primary education, everything related to it, somebody gave us a helping hand. Okay? It's not that we are incapable of, we are very capable of. But tradition and habit is such that those are things that we get to do when other people...
We are supported by.
Yes, that is a tradition. But are you asking, can we do it? Yes. Maybe, you know the thing about COVID is, again, opportunity. Is this yet not another opportunity for us to look at the education sector and say, folks, with an eye to the future and the possibility and the reality that such a thing may happen again, how ought we to think?
Yeah, how can we do better? So, as we go into this break, that thing I was saying, NIMS, is actually NEMIS.
See?
The National Education Management Information System.
It was NIMIS. Yeah, but the version is with an E, not an I. Same thing.
Time for a break, 28 to 7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatleaf and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our
Okay,
future.
Monday morning,
A
and let's see
partnership-
what it looks like on the roads. Be careful on Westlands Road. The roads are a bit slippery, in Westlands. The roads are a bit slippery. Seems that showers have been happening in that neck of the woods. Best time to be on Thika Superhighway is before 6:30. Those who were there before enjoyed a smooth trip into the CBD, all the way from the Thika Road Mall towards Muthaiga. Took about 10 minutes, which is great. Not so much now. It's clogging up already on the same road, heading then towards the Pangani Tunnel. It's going to take some time to get out of that one, and it's already a bumper-to-bumper situation there. There was an accident on Mombasa Road further up ahead, way beyond the Signature Mall. It's affecting traffic that's moving then towards the Way Bridge at Mololongo. But then as you get to the SGR, it's not flowing too badly at the moment. But right after that, it's already clogged up. The expressway construction is not helping matters either. This is what we expect this morning. And so we already have bumper-to-bumper situations on Mombasa Road. That's what it looks like already. Coming out of Westlands also is a bit slow as you get to the University Way roundabout. Uru Highway is already starting to move very, very slowly right now. It's a Monday morning, so we expect this to be the case. We don't have any incidents per se just yet. But if we do, we'll be sure to let you know. You also let us know where you might be stuck and why. Okay? Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
5 to 7.
Mornings done right.
BBI, because it's a headline in the Standard. BBI signature tune. Raila Odinga was meeting with governors from Western Kenya yesterday and some other leaders, and he said, now we are moving on to the point of collecting signatures so that they can go to the IEBC for verification. From that point on, we go to the amendment bill being taken to the county assemblies, get approval, and then we go to a referendum. And he's basically saying, those ones who are calling for this more talk on this BBI, that horse has already bolted. Let's meet at the ballot, okay? So this whole talk of, everybody saying, Catholic leaders, I don't know who wants to have another conversation. Look, can the people just decide? That's where it's going. Raila he's repeated what he has said before, that, listen, there was a window for that. That window has shut. Now we have opened a new window, which is referendum. Maliza's story.
But in tandem with that conversation is, if I may quote what has been attributed to the Deputy President, he has been categorical vis-a-vis COVID that we ought to, as a nation, marshal all our resources, stop all activities that are deemed unnecessary, and focus on seeing how we can tame and finish this menace.
He said, the wave of COVID-19 is clearly ravaging our nation with alarming increases in infections and deaths. The pandemic is killing people, including health workers, while destroying, in capital letters, livelihoods. We should stop everything and mobilize every human, material, and financial resource to fight.
What he has said is true in very many ways. However, if you look at it from the angle of what is the political side, you can just tell this man is making a political statement. He's basically saying, wachana na BBI and a referendum, wachana nayo kwanza as I organize myself, as I regroup and come up with a new message.
Yes.
That's it. But the truth of the matter is, yes, we ought to be having a more serious conversation about how to address COVID-19. This Ruto is not talking about COVID. He's talking about BBI.
You know what I find really strange is how it is that politicians, because of their nature, especially in this country, can muddy some really clear waters.
Yes.
What the Deputy President is saying is absolutely true. But we have been saying this for as long as I can remember. In fact, there are times I actually feel, have we not said this before? But it must be said. Now, if you look at what politicians have been doing, and all of them for that matter, holding rallies, what on earth do these people think they are doing? Right from the time when COVID was first announced and we realized there was a problem, people traveling, meeting, surely.
It's been obvious. And now, even now, we're talking about this. Hospitals across the country are incapable of handling the few cases that we have of COVID-19 because they're few.
That's a shocking thing.
We're talking about less than 2,000 cases requiring hospitalization, and we are unable to deal with it.
It's not that hospitals may not have enough. We're already at that point whereby they are incapable of, as in, it gets higher than this right now.
Yep.
Right now, should the cases increase of people who need ventilator assistance, they will not be able to handle it.
Right now,
That's
they're
where
not
we
able to
are.
handle it.
That's where we are.
As we speak. And it's not about who you know, because some of the doctors who passed on, if you hear their stories, a doctor was moved from Nairobi, they went to Eldoret, they were taken back. We were waiting for availability of an ICU facility in Nakuru when they died. This is a doctor who is known to other doctors and fellow doctors who could basically just say, I know this guy, let's sort him out. But there was no available space, no available oxygen to sort out this doctor. A doctor dies, waiting. Now you tell me, you mwananchi wa kawaida who knows nobody.
Who are you?
These are the conversations we should be having, basically. Even this whole meeting of Western leaders basically should have been, what can we do to
About the
address
state of
COVID?
What can we do to address COVID? A certain Mr. Wilson Sosion today has now said that teachers are in greater danger than learners when it comes to COVID. And I take issue with this because he was one of the ones who said, look, we're ready. There's no risk. Even if we open schools just next door, every school has a dispensary or a medical facility to take care of any cases that might, and we are saying might, pop up. In school, these children are very, very safe. Of the myriad of things that he has said, before this, he now said, it should be noted that although learners are at risk, imagine now, they're suddenly at risk. Teachers are at even higher risk. The death of Mohammed Hamis, the principal of Tononoka Boys High School in Mombasa, together with several others, teachers countrywide, are a clear indication that teachers are most vulnerable. The lives of teachers, just like any others, need to be protected. Same man, not somebody else, not reincarnated. Same man. When learners contract the virus, they expose teachers to the disease. This is something obvious that should have been maybe thought about before. Some of these tutors are in their 50s, the high-risk age, while others suffer from chronic diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, and renal challenges, cancer, to mention but a few. You don't want me to continue?
Enough.
He's the same one who said a few months ago that they were ready to go back to school.
Enough.
Let's talk about City Hall. Sosion na mambo yake wakwende. Now, if you live in Nairobi, it doesn't matter whether you own a business or not. If you live in Nairobi, if a proposal by the city county government of Governor Mike Sonko is approved by the county assembly, you will be required to be paying 2,000 shillings every year to Kanjo for fire certificate.
I don't have.
Meaning?
Now, businesses have been paying a fire certificate. As you renew your permit, there's also a fire certificate. Now they want to extend it so that you pay it at household level. Households in Nairobi will start paying an annual tax of 2,000 shillings for fire certificates, and this is in addition to the fire certificates for businesses. And businesses have been paying. So, for example, large professional bodies have been paying 20,000 shillings, medium professional bodies 6,000 shillings, storage of petroleum for own use 6,000 shillings, large chemists 12,000 shillings, small chemists 6,000 shillings, medium hardware owner 6,000 shillings, and now add that 2,000 shillings for every household fire certificate. Fire certificate means what? You cannot just be given a fire certificate, you must buy a fire extinguisher. So you have a fire extinguisher that's clearly displayed, and it's inspected every 6 months, and you pay that inspection.
And that fire extinguisher is not 2,000 bob.
It's not.
It doesn't come with the 2,000 bob, and it's not the size of extinguisher that you can have in your vehicle.
No.
Okay.
It's a proper fire extinguisher, and then now you pay 2,000 shillings license for it to have it at your home. Some of these things, you look at it and you're wondering, okay, so you're basically just looking for other ways of making money from an already burdened population.
They never stop, by the way. They never stop.
It's always looking for a new way.
Never.
Next, you're going to pay for wearing a shoe. If you wear shoes in this city, you pay 50 shillings every day.
You actually think this is strange? Consumers face a steeper burden of paying for idle electricity after power generation struck a new high. Yes.
Wow.
Ati, idle electricity.
Idle electricity.
For?
Yeah, it's sitting there. Nobody's doing anything with it. It's just sitting there.
Electricity expires. Electricity is not like we actually cannot store AC.
No,
it's generated, it's consumed, or it goes to waste.
Yes,
That's
or you stop generating it. But then you'll find, as is the case with very many of our issues in this country, the issue isn't in the electricity. The issue is in the contracting. That's what the problem is. Because it's a headline on page 5 of the Business Daily. Idle power pain grows as generation hits 1 billion units. Meaning, we're producing more power.
Right.
And someone has to pay for it.
Right.
And we can't utilize all the power producing.
Of course.
Yes. Simple. And yet, there's an edge to this saga. There's cheap electricity, which the people who provide us with electricity prefer not to use. They prefer to go for the diesel-powered, expensive variety of electricity, which ensures you'll pay more. And you keep asking, why don't you just shut down those things? The contract, my brother. If you go into the details, you'll find there's a contract there. You're actually just better off just letting the thing continue. And behind all that, there are people who are benefiting from it. Now, unknown to many Kenyans, Kenya Power is not a parastatal. No, it's not a parastatal.
It's a listed company.
Yes, it's a private company. And the one thing that has eluded investigators is who actually owns it. They'll throw at you names of institutions, a few in perhaps
shareholders,
if
Nairobi
and
Stock
then.
Exchange.
Yes, a long story. It is not, and I repeat, a parastatal. It's a private company, and the individuals.
There's government shareholding, though.
Baba, government has shareholding even in KCB, okay,
And Safaricom.
and the National Bank,
Yep.
and in Kenya Airways.
Anything that's called Kenya, the government is there.
Yes, Kengen.
Kenya Power, Kenya Commercial Bank, Kenya.
So
Be sure that at least
that
one.
the government has shares a good thing. It shows the government has confidence and faith in that enterprise. But this is one enterprise that defies all logic. As a country, you're producing more power than you can use. Laws of supply and demand are out of the window. Here in Kenya, when you have more power than you need, the price goes up, not down.
All right. So what's the point here that you're making? Kenya Power is also mandated by contract to buy this power from these organizations, right?
Yep.
So it'll buy power from Kengen, from its various sources. It'll buy power from the various private institutions that are supplying it with wind power, with thermal power, with solar power. Sasa, maneno imeingilia wapi?
Iko hapa. Every year, which translates into months and then weeks, we have a very nice setup in the power sector. Some clever person, and I mean this in the best way possible, came up and said, let people who produce power just produce power. Let those who construct put up the structures for power just put up that.
For transmission.
Yes, exactly. Now, those who actually do the billing and whatever, so we have them. The details of how these things are contracted and how they intermingle, in my mind, is unclear. What is clear is that we actually are successful in generating power. We are very successful. In fact, we are ahead. I remember the German ambassador told us that when it comes to what you call green energy,
We are ahead.
he said we're ahead. We are actually ahead. However, it's supposed to translate into cheaper power, cheaper energy. In this country, it doesn't. And that's why I'm bringing the issue of contracting all these bodies. What are the details of how we procure our power, and why must we go for the most expensive power? That's really putting it as simply as I possibly can, because that's what we seem to be doing. And then it's passed down. And then the regulator will come in and tell you, no, this thing, we're putting it on hold. It's not moving. Haki, give it 3 days. Up.
Time for another break. 12 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Well, we're looking at more and more headlines in the newspapers this morning. Just keep it right here.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
What are you looking at?
So, speed up hiring of county attorneys. Governors have been urged. Only 10 of the 47 county governments have so far implemented the County Attorney Act since President Uhuru Kenyatta signed it into law on the 9th of July. The County Attorneys Forum chairperson, Bibi Fondo, urged the county government to speed up the transition process of creating the office of the county attorneys in accordance with the law. Speaking on Friday during a 3-day retreat for county attorneys at the Dream of Africa Plan Hotel in Malindi, no less, the County Attorney Forum chairperson said the transition had started and about 10 county attorneys had taken the oath of office. These are those who are already serving as attorneys before the counties passed the legislation, but nothing stops them from doing their work, she said. The retreat was also attended by representatives from the Council of Governors, Law Society of Kenya, and the Director of Public Prosecutions. Fonda, who is also the Kilifi County Attorney, said the new law stamps the authority of those already working through the position that now had been elevated to that of an executive committee member. So the lawyers are said to will be able to help to reduce lawsuits. The County Attorney Act has put in place a structured manner through which governors can deal with legal issues as opposed to the current state where counties have to keep on changing their legal team. It also seeks to improve service delivery and save taxpayers' money, spent on difficult lawyers identified to represent the county governments. So it's a good thing, this county attorney. It's helping us save money.
Brother, no, it doesn't. No. How do you tell me that you're going to save us money by, first of all, ensuring that you are expending a lot of money? Must these meetings take place where
At the Dream of Africa in Malindi. Yeah.
Well, it's an example of the places where these meetings, you'll be told, yes, you want seclusion, etc. Okay, leave that. Good. But ask yourself this simple question. It's a matter of implementing what the Constitution had already stated.
Yes.
What else should these people be focusing on that would guarantee that the counties are run better, that the entire management of counties are run better? How many things have they, this one, have they not implemented as per the Constitution? You see, there is the argument, the larger picture, there's a Constitution, we need to implement it. If we take,
by the way, there's a Constitution here.
Yes, if we take what relates to the counties specifically and ask the question, because again, it's the county assemblies that can do this. What are the things that ought to have been done that haven't been done? And you'll find myriad.
Many.
Yes.
Many.
And which would change the lives of the individuals. What fills our ears and eyes and being when it comes to these assemblies is fighting for money. It may be a reporting issue, but do you hear of counties that have passed some lovely legislation and the implementation is now directly benefiting the people? Maybe it happens, but we don't get to hear of it. I doubt it. Politicians like to be known for doing things. If the guy moves an inch, he will talk about the 10 miles he was moving and he has begun this 10-mile journey, but he has moved an inch. It's what they do. So, yes, it's a good thing that they are implementing aspects of the Constitution that they should. It's just one aspect.
But at the end of the day, when you look at something that's being lauded in this manner, it's actually your job. It's like you saying, City, well, you know what I did today? I woke up in the morning and I came to the standard group and I spoke on radio. For crying out loud, it's your job. It's what you're supposed to be doing. So then looking for this applause all the time over something that was signed into law, and according to the law or according to your position, what you're supposed to be doing then is implementing the law. So you're doing your job. But it would appear to Kenyans that you're doing something that's out of this realm, that's something so fantastic. But it's your job. At the end of the day, a lot of these things that are actually being done, that are put in news and they make headlines, is what you're supposed to be doing. And if that were the case, then everything that Kenyans wake up and do on a normal basis, you should be shouting to everybody. Yes. You should be shouting to everybody. I went and I sold tomatoes worth 1,000 shillings today. Okay, don't sell now. Your family won't eat.
That's why where politicians are involved, they never lose an opportunity to herald and talk about what they are doing. So if we aren't hearing of them doing the other things, that means that isn't their focus.
Yeah.
It isn't that they don't know. They do, but it's not their focus.
It's not where their attention is being set.
Give them an opportunity to charge you more. They'll charge
And
you.
they will do that. Now let's go to the coast, where apparently the security agencies have succeeded in cutting down the supply of cocaine and heroin in Mombasa, Lamu, and Kilifi counties. Unfortunately, drug addicts have turned to a new drug, which is ecstasy, the tablets, the pills. So that is what now is being sold. According to the Coast Coordinator, John Elungata, the sale of the addictive stimulant to the youth in the 3 counties is a big concern to the security team at the coast. The medical pills being abused by the youth and other addicts, according to the security officials, are dozapams, amphetamine, methamphetamine, and methylphenidate. A report by the coast security officials says ecstasy is now being bought widely and being sold widely. Some unscrupulous chemist owners in Kilifi, Mombasa, and Lamu are selling dozapam tablets to drug addicts. And he says they recently confiscated 100 tablets of the pills in Kilifi and Lamu noting that the police also destroyed a 5-acre plantation of bangi in Kwasasi in Hindi location. So, deal with one, another one emerges.
You know, when you hear of drug addiction, you think of maybe something you've seen in the movies. This thing has destroyed lives, many, many lives, most of them young, at the coast. Destroyed, and I mean destroyed, because most people talk of addiction and they think it is something mild. Addiction, there's nothing mild about addiction. It changes behavior, and usually in the most adverse way possible.
Right.
Families are broken up because someone, just to feed the addiction, someone has to sell everything inside. To the point where the family now makes a ruling. You are prohibited. Some have taken their children to jail.
Yep. A parent basically just takes their child to jail.
Because it's too much.
You can't.
Yeah.
And honestly, you don't know what to do. Now, when you know what the drug does and you hear the trade, you have to ask yourself, how did it become so prevalent? Because we have drug problems all over the country. But why is the focus always the coast? Why? What is it about the coast? What is it that people who are in that trade did to make it such a major issue?
Yep.
You see, it's considered the port of entry, is it not?
Yeah. Would you say that was one of the reasons?
It plays an important role, but there's an even bigger one. Part of the reason why you will find people getting into any business is for lack of an alternative, right? People go into the business of selling drugs. Why would they sell drugs if they had alternatives? And usually, the problem has always been the power of example. Someone seems to do it, and you think this is... And they seem to be making money. Yes.
They're living very well.
Yes, and no one gets addicted in a day. You start off by just getting high.
It's habitual. Yeah.
And then over time, your body becomes dependent on it. But when it's that widespread and many families have been ravaged by this, then it isn't a mild thing. It isn't something to be talked about lightly. We were talking about cannabis the other day. My friend, there are parts of this country where you mention that word, they'll tell you no. Because all the cases they know of people whose heads have gone off completely because
of cannabis.
Yes.
Yep.
So the medicine, they'll tell you no. They won't even hear of it. You know, when you hear of people having problems, it is often very difficult to figure out and to estimate just how profound the problem is.
Do you think enough effort has been put into addressing this issue?
In this country?
No.
No.
No. It hasn't.
The addiction part, not just the trade part.
No, the addiction part, no. Anybody who deals with addiction, because, anybody who deals with addiction in this country is dealing with it majorly on a private level. If we're talking about government intervention, national intervention to try and stem the problem or deal with it, it's minuscule in terms of the attention that has been given, even in terms of budgets that have been allocated to the treatment or the care or even the interest in such, minuscule compared to what the private organizations
mental health has become a conversation, has it not?
It has.
And the practice? Go through all the counties and tell me, the major hospitals there, how many of them have a unit to deal with mental health?
Now we are transforming Mathare to become a major referral hospital for the region.
But Mathare has been a referral hospital for the longest time. Why is it? Are we being told that it's becoming? It has been a referral hospital.
We're making it bigger.
My friend, the key is not to make it bigger only. Make it bigger, but make sure that every hospital within the county system in this country, they must
think
have
of
it.
transferring people from all over the country and saying that you mtu amepelekwa Mathare, it also adds to the stigmatization.
Yes.
It has contributed a lot. The first thing that someone tells you, turn to Mathare.
Or they tell you, where?
We're in Mathare case.
Yes, you need to, yes. The conversation about mental health is good, and it's begun well. But I think even those in leadership, it's something that intrinsically they want to avoid. Mental health is not something we discuss easily in this country.
We don't. And we ought to. Fortunately, we'll be speaking to somebody who's an expert on this in the next hour. Professor Lukoya Twali, the Dean at the Aga Khan University Medical College in East Africa, will be speaking to us. Also, we'll be speaking to the Vice Chairperson of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, Dr. Alan Ochanji. We are talking about COVID-19 and how we're addressing COVID-19. We'll also be live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. as well as being live on our online platforms. It's now 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, taking a look at Thika Road this morning.
Traffic.
It starts at Survey slowly towards the CBD. That's very slow, and anybody who left after 6:30 now is stuck in that. As you drive in, all the way from Bangani towards Thika Road, it's jam. So in and outbound on Thika Road today is where we see problems. Also, it's moving very slowly on Mombasa Road today, all the way from the Way Bridge at Milolongo, and it's slowed down considerably through till General Motors. You move after that, you get to Bellevue, slows down a little bit more, and all the way to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and then onto Huru Highway into the CBD. So it looks like it's moving very, very slowly this morning, guys. This is what we see. All right, then coming off Langata Road, getting towards the Timor roundabout, you can either go towards Bagadhiwe. It's not too bad at this moment, or then towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout where you will get stuck. Aerodrome Road, however, you can use. It's moving quickly this morning. And then everybody trying to get into the CBD, moving very slowly then from Thika Road. The eastern and southern bypasses, however, a longer route to and from where you're going, but you will not be stuck in traffic. All right, we'll take a look at what it looks like in half hour. But for now, this is what you have. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127 should you get stuck.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2.5 minutes after 7. A very good morning to you wherever you're tuned in this morning in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, or anywhere else in the world, or also on KTN Home. Those who are joining us on KTN Home, this is the second hour of the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Also, we are online. CT Muga, as we begin the hour, what is today's proverb?
Ears that do not listen, accompanying the head, when it is chopped off.
Ears that do not listen accompany the head
when
when
it
it's
is chopped off.
All right.
As I say, go hand in hand. Or should we say toe to toe?
Sounds like we are basically saying that the ears will be to blame for the head being chopped off.
We are saying that the ear is the pathway through which the head receives instructions. Of course, it then proceeds to other parts of the body that do all the difficult, the back-breaking work. But we assume that the process of listening begins there. If it doesn't do its job,
The head goes.
even when the complaint is not about it.
In a quanda.
There was a Greek, a gentleman who was famed for many sayings called Aesop.
Yes.
You heard of Aesop's fables. He had many fables that told stories similar to this one, but in greater details. Yes. I will mention him in detail one of these days.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about COVID-19 in our country. And we know that doctors have felt the heat and the brunt. And yesterday, doctors called a press conference in which they were discussing COVID-19 because of what has happened to many of their colleagues. Number of them have passed on, and now doctors have said, look, you know what, enough is enough. It's suicidal, doctors said, as they gave a strike notice. Yesterday, they gave a 21-day strike notice saying, look, we need this matter addressed because many of our doctors are dying, and this is just not just from the doctors, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, but also the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers has also joined in that call because of the number of doctors that have died in the last couple of days. These are many doctors, many of them, and we know, obviously, from the very beginning, we said doctors and medical workers are our frontline fighters in the war against COVID-19. Many of them are now saying, look, we are exposed. We don't have access to PPEs. We don't have even access to, we don't even have medical insurance. This is a conversation that was had a long time ago. In fact, the president said, you know what, medical insurance is something that is going to be provided to the healthcare workers because they are our frontline workers and frontline soldiers in this fight. Now they're saying we don't have that. As we saw the press conference that was addressed by the leadership of the KMPDU yesterday, Dr. Chibanzi Mochonda, who's the Secretary General, came out and said a number of these doctors who've passed on, many of our members and their families have had to contribute to foot the bills, the hospital bills for these members, because some of them had bills running up to millions of shillings, 2 million shillings and thereabouts. And there's no help forthcoming from the government. Just last week, the minister, the CS for Health, said NHIF cannot manage to foot more of these bills, so you are again on your own. These are issues that have been talked about for a long time. You know, how are we treating our healthcare workers? How are we treating our frontline workers? How are we equipping our hospitals? Are our hospitals able to address this issue? And it has just not moved anywhere. So doctors are saying in the next 21 days, if we don't meet our demands, which are very basic, provide PPEs, ensure that we have access to medical insurance and others. If you don't do that, 21 days, we down our tools. Enough is enough.
You know, the discussion of the PPEs, I have to ask this question, given the sort of mess we've been reading about at KEMSA. Do the PPEs meet the international standards that are required for such?
Which PPEs?
The ones we have in this country.
The ones being distributed
Yes,
to the doctors?
yes. Do they? Because if they are found to be substandard or faulty, they could also contribute to the rate of infections. Yes.
So they're not offering the protection that they require.
Yes. So I'm asking, do we have a standardized way in which we look at this thing? Can we be told categorically that these PPEs that we've now brought in the country and which are being used by healthcare workers meet the standards that are recognized internationally? Can that be said unequivocally? Can it be said? Can it be stated? Can we get an affirmation?
Big question. Big question. We're going to be asking, let's bring in our doctors because we have to have this conversation with them. Professor Lukoya Atwoli is the Dean at the Aga Khan University Medical College, East Africa. And also we have Dr. Alan Ochanji. He is the Vice Chairperson of the KMPDU, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. They're joining us on the line. Prof and Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we appreciate that you have had some time to join us. We know that Professor Lukoya Atwoli will be talking to you for half an hour as we continue with the conversation with Dr. Alan Ochanji. So let's just begin with you, Prof. You've heard the question that CT is asking, and these are questions that have even been asked before, in terms of the kind of quality that we have of the PPEs being distributed in our healthcare, in our hospitals across the country.
Yeah, I think if you look at what we had starting in March, April, there was a wide variety of PPEs being purchased and distributed at extremely high cost. And at that point, many of the pieces of PPE that were being distributed were found to be of very, very poor quality. So at some point, there's a team from KMA, the union, and the Ministry of Health, together with people from KEBS, that started, reviewing the kinds of PPE that were being distributed, and I think the quality improved significantly. So today, there is availability of high-quality PPE on the market. Now, those who look for those high-quality PPE are able to get them and purchase them and distribute to their staff. The tragedy is that in many public health facilities, that procurement of this PPE is not up to scratch. So you have a situation where people are being given a limited quantity of protective equipment, which they can only use for a limited period of time. And after sometimes there are shortages and what is being given is inadequate. And this is therefore exposing many of these health workers in the public health facilities to potential infection at their place of work and elsewhere. So this is a big problem. The fact that they are not getting adequate amounts of PPE is now the big problem rather than necessarily the quality of those PPEs.
It's a problem, and it seems to be teetering on the baffling that it should be a problem that we are dealing with now. If we are saying that we're in the middle of a war against COVID-19, and you know that your soldiers essentially are frontline workers, and they need to be protected, and still unable then to care for the frontline workers to be able to get this done. Because if I present myself to hospital, I'm hoping that it will be a doctor, medical practitioner who is taking care of me, and they don't have this, then can't we then say that we are actually doing what needs to be done against this fight? I mean, where are we? What are we really doing?
Yeah, I think for a long time, and we have said this, countless times, this country has not taken the health of the citizens seriously. We have not bothered to put in place sufficient infrastructure. We haven't done enough to ensure that the facilities that we have are properly staffed with qualified human resource. We haven't invested much in human resource development among those that we have recruited. We haven't invested enough in research so that we have solutions that are locally generated that would then be able to, we can use them to address issues, including the pandemic that is upon us. We haven't cared enough about the welfare of our health workers to ensure that they are healthy and they are happy in order that they then take care of our citizens in the prescribed way. So we haven't taken this as seriously as we should. And the reality of this pandemic is that it has not presented a new problem to the health systems. The health systems are supposed to be built to deal with crises such as this pandemic. Health workers are trained to deal with crises such as this pandemic. What they do on a day-to-day basis outside of the pandemic is really preparatory work. So a good health system, a well-established health system, should not be shocked when a crisis like this pandemic comes in. They would just put in place the mechanisms that they have already, had in place, and they would deal with whatever comes. When you see a system collapsing, such as our health system, then what it tells you is that we were not prepared to deal with anything that a health system is supposed to be prepared to deal with. If you look at the healthcare workers' welfare, if you look at the health benefits that they are supposed to enjoy, in many public health facilities, an NHIF cover was set up, which looked good, and people could access health services covered by NHIF. Now, when you say that during a pandemic this cover is not available, this suggests then that the health cover was not adequate in the first place, because a health worker who gets infected outside of the pandemic, if he gets malaria, which is severe, he might need the same critical care services as a person who has COVID would need. So if you could cover critical care for somebody, a health worker with malaria, it beats reason why you wouldn't be able to cover them when they have COVID-19. So those are the things that tell us that our health system hasn't been set up in a way that is optimal, both to ensure that the health workers are ready to deal with the problems that they encounter and to help the public so that they can be confident that whatever comes their way, they can go to a health facility and get help.
So what we are saying, Professor Lukoya, and also for you, Dr. Ochanji, is that the problem then is not COVID-19. When we're looking at these, what we're hearing today, that somebody goes from one place looking for oxygen cannot get, it could be COVID today, Ebola tomorrow, a resurgence of HIV the next month. So the problem is not these diseases that we are facing. No. The problem is not COVID-19. The problem is how the health system is set up. If people who are dying, if somebody had a mass accident in Matungu and required critical care and was taken to the nearest health facility, chances are that they will not survive because they will do exactly the same dance of moving from facility to facility looking for oxygen. If somebody got meningitis and required critical care somewhere in rural Kitui, the chances of survival are very low. So, but if we set up the system so that people requiring critical care can get it wherever they are and survive,
then it doesn't matter whether they're requiring critical care because of COVID or because of malaria or because of a road traffic crash. They would get the care that they need because the system would be set up. And I'll give you an example. Even if you go to Europe and look at countries that were overwhelmed, and there are many examples, and then look at countries that were not necessarily overwhelmed. Like, I take an example of Germany, although, of course, fingers crossed, you never know how this pandemic evolves. But what you will notice is that Germany had infrastructure in place to take care of patients requiring critical care. So it didn't matter whether it is COVID, whether it is anything that was coming their way, and they were able to take care of all the patients requiring critical care. At some point, they were even importing patients from other countries to help with the effort across Europe. If you come then to other countries getting overwhelmed, including the U.S., the U.S. health system was very fragmented, was very expensive, it was difficult for people to access care even before COVID-19. So when COVID-19 comes along, the system is very quickly overwhelmed because it is not set up to provide critical care services to a large population needing it. So it is about the health system setup rather than using COVID-19 to say, it's COVID-19 that is causing a problem. No, COVID-19 is causing a problem because the health system was not optimally set up to do exactly what health systems are set up to do.
Let me just ask this question. When you talk about a health system that actually functions, is it something that is feasible? On this continent, tell me, which country would you say has an effective health system?
So, question of feasibility is like asking, it's a good question, but it's like asking me, is it feasible to keep people alive in a country? That's the only reason governments exist. That's the only reason we come together, pool our funds, and elect people so that they can ensure that we are kept alive, after being kept alive, that we are healthy, and that we can be productive subsequently. So the question of feasibility doesn't arise. It is the raison d'etre for every government. Why we elect governments is to ensure we are alive, we are healthy, and we can be productive. And so any government that sits down and applies its energies and imagination on the problem of ensuring that people are safe and healthy will find a solution that will ensure that people are safe and healthy. But a government that says that this is not a priority, then we'll come back and ask questions about feasibility. How much does a human life cost? What is the value of a human life? That is a decision that is made, and then based on that decision, you invest adequately in the health of those people that you're taking care of.
That was actually the first part of my question. The second part is, you see, we are dealing with the preventative aspects of medical care. Now, when you are in a situation like the one we are in Kenya, where it is clear that the government we have or the governments we've had do not seem to be overly concerned about the very things you've been mentioning. What then can you, as a health practitioner, advise the citizenry to do in order to prevent? Because seeking treatment is the cost and the bother. If you could avoid it, you'd be much better off. What then do you do beyond the obvious?
So what I would advise Kenyans is that they must make a link between the political decisions they make and the health that they enjoy. That if you make certain political decisions, then your health will be at risk. And if you make a different type of political decision, chances of your health being better are higher. In other words, during political campaigns, during constitutional discussions and so on, citizens must interrogate what is on offer as far as health is concerned. Now, if citizens don't do that, the health workers do not have much. The health workers will work with what they're given. If you're given, a facility without equipment, you do the best you can, and where you can't, it will be obvious because there'll be higher mortality, people will suffer, and so on. But where you are given adequate tools to work with, then you will do a stellar job because that's what you're prepared to do. So citizens must start interrogating the leadership as far as the health priorities are concerned. If health becomes a priority for the voter, if health becomes a priority for the average citizen, it will become a priority for the politician, and it will become a priority for any government that is subsequently elected, because they will know, if I don't take care of the health of my people, then I'm going to be kicked out of office. And nobody enjoys being kicked out of office. But as long as it is not a priority for the voter, it's not a priority for the average citizen, it will not be a priority for any government. There are many other things that governments have to deal with and struggle with, and they will only focus on those that are a priority for the voter.
Dr. Chanji, we've heard several times when the union has wanted to come out and say, look, if we don't have these requirements or we don't have these standards at a very bare minimum kept, the only answer that we can have to this is issue a strike notice, which again, we've seen the same thing has been done now. Is this in a response to COVID, or is it in a response to the years of the lackluster approach that we've seen towards health and its requirements in this country? Kind of like what Professor Lukoya has been talking about.
Thank you. I join my senior prof in identifying all the statements he's made. The strike is unfortunate, and it never comes at a point when we fully agree that we have to go on strike and we are happy about it. It's very unfortunate, but sometimes it's the only option that we are left with. We are not responding, we are not issuing the strike necessarily because of COVID, but because of perennial neglect that has climaxed in this pandemic. The fundamental things, as Prof has mentioned, that has been overlooked over a period of time. We know for sure that if you go on a strike, Kenyans will suffer. My mom is not spared, me as a person, not spared. But we must make some critical decisions and keep our leaders accountable if we have to enjoy health as a right. At the heart of it are medical workers, health workers who are completely at risk. We're working in a situation where our hospitals have more of become death traps and death rates. We cannot continue doing the same things and expect different results. We've talked about it's not the first time, and by the time we come up with a decision to go on strike, it's really a painful one. So yes, there are things to do with financing of health, infrastructure, human resource, commodity and supplies that have been neglected over a period of time.
Dr. I am certain that with the industrial action that you have planned, you anticipate certain results. But I want to go back into history a little bit. It isn't the first time, even long before the union was formed, doctors have aired their grievances by going on strike. Now, would you say that with this current strike that is being anticipated, that you will achieve something a great deal more than has been achieved in the past? And this thing that you hope to achieve, what is it exactly?
Our rallying call has always been very, very clear and involves around 5 things or 4 things when it comes to healthcare workers. Recruit, protect, compensate, motivate. Those are things that can be done immediately and revert the strike. When you're talking about recruitment, we have more than 1,000 locally trained doctors who are ready to be deployed to work. We haven't seen them being employed. It's very unfortunate that we have qualified doctors who can work, and there's the need for them to work, but we can't just put them in place of work because of misplaced priority. When you're talking about protection, and Prof has mentioned, we're talking about adequate and quality PPEs. It's very unfortunate that we have our frontline healthcare workers going to work without being protected. How do you expect someone to work without an N95 mask, without a gown, without a shoe cover, without headgear? These are things that can be done. And you know, when you're talking about PPEs, it's not a one event in time. It needs adequate and proper planning so that it's constantly supplied. We see a case where it's supplied today, you're not able to show about it tomorrow. COVID is here, it's been with us for months, and it's going to be with us for another considerable period of time. So we must also look at things that are sustainable and is continuously effective. When we are talking about protection, we're having healthcare workers who do not even have medical cover. I mean, it's not strange, there's nothing we're asking new. NHIF exists right now. We pay premium because our medical allowances was withdrawn. we also pay 1,700 in terms of NHIF. That is something that, if it's collapsed together, is enough to provide comprehensive medical care for every worker. That's not something new. It's not a new demand. It's just that you need to enroll it. You need to roll it out to all the healthcare workers in this country. It's shameful that we are providing services that ourselves can't afford. And when you're talking about compensation, it must be looked at a point where, if you are giving this healthcare worker a compensation, look at it that you're also protecting yourself. If you fall sick, you will need that person to take care of you. And you also have you also have to find a way of motivating them. It's sad that we're talking at a point where there's only 300 ICU beds in the whole country. Right now, as we're talking to you, all of them are full. God forbid, if you and I fall sick today, it will take a miracle to be admitted in any ICU, because the 300 are full. We lost our colleague, a senior colleague, Dr. Ashraf. And it's because in Eldoret, the ICU bed is full. When you come to Naivasha, the ICU bed is full. When you come to Nakuru, the ICU bed is full. By the time the person gets in Nairobi, if you get a miracle to be admitted in Aga Khan or Nairobi also, it's just a miracle. But you're staring at death. So these are things that we believe the 21 days notice is a very long period of time. They can be done, they can be effected, and we can avert the strike. But more importantly, we must prioritize health and look at the perennial things that have disturbed us over a period of time.
Let's look at what those 21 days can achieve and whether it's actually possible to get extra ICU beds in those 21 days, and what else could be done in the 21 days, or whether this strike notice is a fait accompli. The doctors will go on strike in 21 days. Time for us to take a break, but also say thank you very much for joining us, Professor Lukoya Twali, who needs to go into another meeting. Prof, asante sana for joining us this morning. We hope to have another conversation with you in coming days.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Prof.
Bye-bye.
This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We have been speaking with Professor Lukoya Twali. He's the Dean at the Aga Khan University Medical College, East Africa. And also we have the Vice Chairperson of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists. Why do I keep saying pharmacists?
Don't worry.
Pharmacists.
Monday.
And Dentists Union, KMPDU, Dr. Alan Ochanji. Dr. Ochanji will be with us for a couple more minutes as we look at this particular issue of COVID-19, the response by the government. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home, on Spice FM and online. We'll be back shortly, 27 minutes after 7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
Tonight on the Great Kenyan Bake Off,
Fire on the place.
the best 3 from each heat meet for the ultimate face-off.
I'm in this to win it.
It's Pastry Week. Join the bakers as they take on an old classic.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you, guys.
And a signature that will show off just why they were the cream of their crops.
Dough can smell fear.
Don't miss the action as we find out who will lead the battle of the 6.
Smells like heaven.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
We're looking at cloudy conditions in many parts of Nairobi. Highs of 23 and lows of 17 today. The low will be 13 in Nakuru, where it's mostly cloudy with highs of 23. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nyeri. The low will be 13, highs of 22. Sunny conditions in Eldoret this morning at 12. We'll see highs of 22 as well. It rains in Kisumu this morning at 19, going to highs of 20. 26 and lows of 18. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 19, going to highs of 25 and lows of 14. The highs will be 29 in Mombasa and lows of 25, experiencing light rain at the moment. It's mostly cloudy in Malindi, giving way to rain later on in the day, with highs of 23 and lows of 16. Cloudy conditions in Kampala give way to rain later, highs of 24 and lows of 18. It's mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 25. The high will be 29. And it's sunny in Joburg at 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. Lagos is experiencing rain this Monday morning at 26. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25. While in Kinshasa, it continues to rain. Highs of 29 and lows of 23.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Traffic.
So there was an accident further up Mombasa Road today, quite far out towards Konza, but that affected, it's moving slowly in that direction. But then all towards to the SGR this morning, it looks quite slow. It's bumper to bumper and quite backed up far back today. Everybody getting into town this morning, and it seems that right around then, as you go towards the capital centre and then out towards Nyayo Stadium roundabout, that slows down some. The construction continues on the expressway. We got to remind you every morning that this is what we see. It's going to be a problem as we continue with traffic. All right. Looking then towards Thika Road, we have traffic all the way then from the Thika Road Mall towards the Pangani Tunnel. That's moving very slowly as well as you're trying to get towards the CBD. Okay, the eastern and southern bypasses are open to and from Thika Road and Mombasa Road. As you get then towards the city centre using that long route to get onto Langata Road, you should be fine. As you get towards Bagadi Way, it also looks good as you approach the city mortuary roundabout. And then getting onto Valley Road, you should be okay. Coming out of Westlands, visibility, as we've been told, is poor, so you need to be careful as you're coming out of there. Let us know if you're stuck anywhere, any incidents we should know about and warn other people about. Also, Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
We're back at 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. spicefm.co.ke. On the line with us this morning is the Vice Chairperson of the KMPDU, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, Dr. Alan Ochanji. It's suicidal, say the doctors as they give strike notice. This is the story on page 10 of the Standard this morning. Yesterday, the KMPDU issued this 21-day strike notice saying that they need the government to address the issues that are affecting healthcare workers in this period. Remember earlier, the doctors had actually made a resolution not to engage in any industrial action that will involve downing tools because of their role in the pandemic. But the situation, according to the Doctors' Union, has forced them to set aside the resolve. According to the Secretary General, Dr. Mwachonda Chibanzi, he said, doctors will not engage in a suicidal mission in the war against COVID-19. He termed the decision as painful but necessary because the doctors have relatives who are as well at risk of the virus. If these 3 weeks, we are open for deliberations, but if the government starts the usual way of running to court, that will be the wrong direction, because if you take us back to work in the same environment, we will die. They're saying the political class and leadership have failed the healthcare workers and Kenyans at large, with the relevant reaction to the pandemic being just releasing daily updates. The doctors are saying the numbers making sense are these numbers making sense, or are we just counting the dead? The number of cases have increased with the rise in political activities, and in turn, hospitals are overwhelmed and doctors are forced to work in difficult environment. So as you were going to the break, Dr. Ochanji, you said these 21 days are enough for the government to start putting some things in order. And there was a 7-point demand that you issued yesterday with your strike notice. Among them, of course, is release the PPEs and others that are being held at KEMSA. Supply them to the doctors across the country. But do you think the 21 days would be enough to get meaningful movement in terms of positive change from the government, Dr. Ochanji?
21 days is a very long time. In my view, we don't even need 2 days to do this if we put priority into all this stuff. Because we've provided a roadmap, we've given suggestions, not one, but so many times. If we are talking about a case where we already lost some doctors, we lost up to almost 6 doctors in 24 hours. If we're talking about, for a public, it might be statistics that we've lost 10 doctors. But for us, it's a person you work with, and you know for sure that having lost that person in that manner, you know that if at all, and God forbid, anything happens to you the same way, you also will go in the same route. Mm-hmm. So we mean what we say that within 21 days, if the government is serious, it can be able to do all these things. I mean, how do you describe the fact that we've set up to 14 billion aside to do a referendum and done BBI in a case where we don't even have piped oxygen in our hospital? Mm. Why do we allocate such a huge amount of money if you cannot even provide a nurse with a PPE? I'll give an example of this. The governor there is the chair of health committee in the Council of Governors. Mm-hmm. They launched a building in the name of ICU about 4 months back. What happened 4 months later? We lost a nurse there because there was no ICU. So in the eyes of the governor, what did he launch? He launched
the
a
ICU.
Building. But he launched a building. He failed to understand that ICU goes beyond the building. Mm. You need constant oxygen supply. You need someone trained to work there. You need commodities for that thing to function. You go into Muranga today, they also launched a building there. They launched a building in the name of ICU in a case where you don't even have anesthesiologists. These are the things that we must correct if we have to move forward as a nation. It's not magic, it's possible. We just need to reorient our thinking and put priority.
Okay, so what are the things that we are asking for? So let's look at these 21 days and say that certain things need to be put in place so that doctors don't go on strike, so that medical workers don't go on strike, right? And get the job done.
Yes.
What are we saying absolutely needs to be done now?
The minimum to avert the strike.
These are the things, right? We've talked about employment. We have more than 1,000 doctors who are trained. We need them to be deployed immediately. Mm-hmm. Because we're having overstrained workforce. Mm-hmm. There are those who've gone into isolation. We've lost others. Mm-hmm. We are strained. Mm-hmm. The 1,000 doctors can really come in handy and help care. Mm-hmm. The other thing, we need them to be protected. We need adequate and quality PPEs. Mm-hmm. We cannot do chances. You have PPE today. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow you don't have it. Mm-hmm. COVID has been with us. It's going to be with us for a few more months. Mm-hmm. We must put in mechanisms to ensure that every day, every healthcare worker has enough protective devices. Compensation. Mm-hmm. We've lost 10 colleagues. We've not even seen any form the government has done to compensate their families. If any healthcare worker dies today, you're on your own. We are talking about adequate insurance, NHIF comprehensive. Mm. It's shameful that you expect our doctors to work, but you cannot even provide them with a comprehensive medical cover if they were to get COVID in line of duty. Mm. That is bare minimum. We cannot work without adequate comprehensive medical cover. We are tired of contributing for our colleagues.
But how is this still a conversation, Dr. Ochanji? This, if I remember correctly, the president in one of his addresses during this COVID-19 period, he said that this is one of the things that is going to happen.
It was on July 6th, to be
We are
specific.
going to hire more doctors. Now you're talking about this is a demand that you're placing. We're going to hire 1,000 doctors. In fact, part of the money that was had initially been earmarked for UHC was to go to hiring doctors. Second, you're going to have higher allowances for medical professionals during this period. third, you're going to have a comprehensive insurance cover. These are the demands that you're making in November, on the 16th of November. This conversation was had a long time ago. What happened?
So we are here and we need to do a scorecard. Tell me, COVID is here.
Yep.
Healthcare workers were given a flat rate allowance, which was at one point in time in the pay slip, and it was withdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
It was paid like for 2 months, and it was withdrawn, and it was not even given to any of them. COVID has been here for the better part of the year. We are going into the new year. We don't know what's going to happen. What is the logic of giving the miscellaneous at one point in time?
Let's just be clear, Dr. Ochanji. You're saying that we know about the extra allowance that was to go to healthcare workers, from 20,000 shillings for doctors, going all the way down to, was it 5,000 shillings for the other cadres? Just going all the way down. Are you saying this was only paid twice?
It was paid once and it was withdrawn. It's no longer in the pay slip. Yet we continue working, continue treating patients faithfully, we continue working in those hospitals because we also have a duty.
Was there any
But
communication
the government
on this?
has never reciprocated well enough and shown goodwill.
Okay. And the issue of the comprehensive insurance cover.
Yes.
What happened with that?
You know, right now we have up to only 20 counties that offer a comprehensive NHIF insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You and I heard and saw NHIF CEO come out in public and say that you are on your own. NHIF will not cover COVID-related illnesses and that. Health workers included. So how do you wake up in the morning, faithfully go to work, knowing for sure that if I was to get COVID as I work, NHIF will not cover for me? How? We only have 20 counties that offer comprehensive NHIF cover.
But
even in those
what
20...
what do you mean 20, Daktari? The president said that all healthcare workers during this COVID-19 period are going to get health insurance cover. Are you saying that this did not happen?
So that is the question, and that is the conversation we must candidly have. When the president said, among other things, that we need each county to have a 300 capacity bed, do we have those 300 capacity beds in each county?
Tell us, do we?
We don't. When the president said that each and every healthcare worker need a comprehensive medical cover, I'm here to tell you that we don't. We are not madmen to come and make noise in the public if I know for sure I'm covered. And we're saying this because we've lost colleagues and we've contributed money. So we don't have medical cover. When you are saying that we need healthcare workers recruited, it's a fact we have doctors who are trained in this country that are jobless. Yet we have a lot of gaps in our hospitals.
Dr. Chanji, I have to ask this question. If I'm, forgive me for interrupting you, but does it mean that the pledge, because my colleague Eric asked this question, the pledge by the government through the president to employ doctors, were there no doctors employed?
That's the question you should ask. One, the CS, two, the PS, because if those doctors are employed, where were they employed? They must be taken to the hospitals where we were. We haven't seen that.
Okay, now there's a confusion here, and that's why we are keeping quiet, because this is it's a serious indictment on the part of the government. You, as the people who are on the ground, and you are trained doctors, and you represent doctors, you're saying that doctors were not employed during this period. The 1,000 healthcare workers that were going to be employed were not employed.
And were healthcare, I mean, let's talk about the healthcare fraternity.
Yeah.
Doctors,
nurses,
medical officers, everyone who is in the health profession. Did the government employ more personnel or did it not?
We forget about even the pandemic. We have always talked about more employment and continuous. The burden has become worse during COVID. We haven't seen doctors, nurses, clinical officers, healthcare workers being employed. The worst thing is, pronouncement was made so that this is done. That was not done. 2, we continue having gaps. And 3, we have a local pool where it's so easy just to come and pick them and then put them. They're already trained. They're ready to work.
You
So
know,
the
even-
question you're asking me why
Yes.
healthcare workers haven't been employed should be put to the CSS, should be put to the PS, Madam Ochache, and to the relevant people. Why do they keep on neglecting healthcare workers? And it comes at a point when there's consideration that they want to go and import new doctors from Cuba. Who bewitched us?
That's an interesting discussion, but the reason why you see us harping on this same point is this. We are listening to you and we believe you, and we are thinking here collectively and wondering, we have doctors who are trained who are not employed.
Yes.
We have a crisis that requires all the doctors we can get our hands on.
Yes.
We have a situation we need all the healthcare fraternity that we have employed and trained that we have trained in this country employed and engaged.
True.
And from what we are hearing is that there's no evidence to point to the fact that this has actually been done. But then there's a clincher to it. Health is a devolved function.
True.
Now, if it's a devolved function, much as we may take the hatchet to the Ministry of Health, do our counties have the capacity to employ more health workers?
One, health is a shared function. The national government also still has a role in terms of policy direction. 2, we have only one government and one country called Kenya. We don't have 47 countries. We only have one Kenya with 47 devolved units. All the money comes from the exchequer. Counties, do they have capacity to hire? Yes, and absolutely, because we've seen them using money in other areas that are not priority. Why is it that when it comes to hiring healthcare workers, there's no money? But when it comes to, buying big vehicles, building mansions, and doing other non-consequential things, there's money. So yes, there's absolutely enough money to employ all the healthcare workers. There's absolutely enough money to give them comprehensive medical coverage. It's just that we've never put it as a priority and we've never looked at it as a right.
Dr. Chanji, this is not the first this is not the first strike notice that has been given by yourselves.
Yes.
Previously, even in this COVID period, there was another notice and there was intention to strike, several across the board. What is it that you're told then that stops the strike from taking place? And I ask this because it seems that when people are dying or when prominent people die, that is when some attention is given. And as morbid as it sounds, it seems that it is when thousands of people begin to drop off the face of the earth that somebody is going to sit up and pay attention or take notice. So what is it that you are told that makes you then recall the notice for strike on several occasions? If you have said that this is a perennial problem, obviously there's something that you're told that stops you then from going on strike on numerous occasions. But you're saying that certain things need to be done in order for you to operate. But somehow they seem to be able to tell you something that stops you then from going on strike.
I thank you. Going on strike is a very painful thing. And by the time we consider it, it's not something that we would want to do. So sometimes we just sit back and withdraw a strike notice. Not because anything has been done, but it's because you're considerate to the general public and to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes to a point in time where you cannot sit back and do that anymore. We are talking at a point where we have lost up to 10 colleagues, the people we know.
So with this strike notice, what guarantee do you have that these things that you're asking to be done within these 21 days will actually be done? Because it seems as if it's a button that you can press and then somebody's going to pay attention. But it's clear that doesn't guarantee any results. So with this one now today where we are.
By the time we are coming to this decision, take it from us that we will not go to work without properly being given medical cover. We will not go to work without PPEs.
But you know what's going to happen? And I've got to push this because what is going to happen is that the 21 days will lapse, right? somebody is going to come and say, all right, we're going to hire doctors, we're going to give you the health cover, and then the strike notice will be recalled. And then a month later, we're going to be having the same discussion yet again. What's to guarantee that that will not be the outcome again of this process?
If there was appropriate and adequate leadership in the ministry and also in the country, and one that prioritizes health, we don't even need to come and ask for a guarantee. We just need to fix things and ensure that things are working. Our bare minimum, as I've told you, is comprehensive medical cover. The other thing is PPEs. You can take it from us that so long as there are no PPEs, we will not go to work. Because if you go to work without PPE, you know what you're doing? You're simply presenting yourself to a death trap.
Sure.
So who would want to do that?
But
We've
doctor,
seen it, we've experienced it. We are not going to sit back and see ourselves exposed. You don't have a means of treating yourself. Salary is not paid on time. The same government that is withholding your salary cannot provide you with a medical cover and cannot guarantee your protection when it comes to the PPEs. So how do you expect this person to work? They will not go to work. After the 21 days, if the government doesn't do any other thing, we will sit back at home and join our family.
It is a tricky balance. Indeed, it is, because it's like you're in a war and you're the one who has the likelihood of being shot first, and yet you're not being given the ammunition and the equipment you require. It is true, and it's a tricky balance. And it's even trickier when you consider that if you go on strike, you will then now put other people who don't have your training and your capacity to understand in the front line. And they are likely to be shot because they are larger in numbers. So they are likely to be even harder hit by your absence. How do you as a union balance this? Must people die in order for this to be achieved?
Seems so.
Must doctors die in order for us to be given PPEs? No. Must Kenyans die must Kenyans die when we go on strike? No. Can these things be avoided? Yes. But this is how we've done, and we've balanced it. For you to give strike, you only need 7 days. We have given 21 days. That is a very long time to do this thing. 2, we've withdrawn strike notices so many times before because we give this benefit that perhaps the government might have a goodwill to implement this thing. A time comes when you cannot sit back and wait for a goodwill from the government. While even if you keep quiet, you still have death. Kenyans still suffer without proper medication. We have hospitals that are dry of oxygen. So why should we sit and clap and cheer on a hospital that is becoming a horror, an empty space, and a point where people, instead of coming to get treated, they come to die? We cannot.
in this period, Dr. as we wind up the conversation, in this COVID-19 period, has your union been engaging the government on these matters that you're raising? Because there are those that will just look at your reaction now and feel it's also a very emotive and emotional reaction because of the loss of your colleagues. So this is also very emotional. You're very raw right now. You've lost your colleagues and therefore you're taking action. But prior to this, have you been engaging the government?
We have engaged the government so many times. We have written letters that have been met with neglect. We went for a nationwide strike, unfortunately, in 2016, 2017. The things we are talking about right now were captured in a document called a CP. The government is yet to fully implement that document. If that document was implemented, I can assure you, Eric, we will not go on strike. Because that document covers things to do with recruitment, employment, compensation, protection. I mean, it's not a miracle that we're talking about unpreparedness at this point. It's just that we were not prepared from the word go. COVID, yes, unfortunately as it is, there are also other things. We have highly resistant TB. We also have Ebola. A system that works must be prepared. You cannot be reactionary every day. But a point comes when now you have to push the government to act.
Is this the straw that's going to break the camel's back? Are we done at this point saying unless we have these solutions, we're not going back to work.
Unless we're sure that when you go to hospital, you're given the things to work, we are not going back to work. Unless you're sure if you go to hospital, the government will take care of your bills, we are not going back to work. I like the narrative you mentioned, that being at the forefront, we're the first to receive the bullet. That is true. But you also look at it at the context where you have a gun, you have something to protect you, you have a shield. So yes, there are chances you might die because no one really controls death. But you must also be protected even as you go into that war. So long as you are not protected, so long as you are exposed, we will not go ahead and expose ourselves further. And this is to the best interest of Kenyans, because right now, we are having counties that do not employ. If you get injured in Mandera, you will not get a maxillofacial surgeon. If you get a problem in Homa Bay, you'll be rushed to Nairobi. We've had Kenyans dying in between, in transition, being transferred from Kisii to Nairobi for something that can be fixed in Kisii.
Yep.
It's time that perhaps also as Kenyans, we just need to hold our leaders accountable. You don't need to travel from Lamu to come to Nairobi to get treated. You need a doctor there. And the government must ensure that they retain you there, they compensate you so that you offer your services to the Mwananchi.
Good point,
It's a time that Kenyans should also have a national conversation about health.
Thank you very much. Dr. Alan Ochanji is the Vice Chairperson of the KMPDU, that's the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. Thank you very much for talking to us, raising the issues that they have raised on the 21-day strike notice to doctors. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home, 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. This conversation is continuing the next hour. Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice.
So the doctor basically is saying, look, we are here, this is where we've reached, and something must give. If you listen to that, do you see the government, heeding this call and saying, all right, so let's address some of the issues that have gotten us here?
Is
it an emergency to the government?
I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. People will die. And they will die in very large numbers. And it appears that for the government to pay heed to any of these things, because we are not discussing something new, we are not talking about something that has just happened because of COVID, we are not talking about a situation that ought to have been rectified God knows when. And we've seen the drama that has followed. Even with COVID, money has been given and the story of things being done, beds moving. We've seen this.
Yeah.
Now, at some point in life, things can get to a head. Now, this is it. It's coming to a head when there's COVID. And in the absence of the health practitioners working, people will really die.
This 21-day strike notice ought not be coming from the doctors. It actually should be the citizens of the country giving the government 21 days. Ship up or ship out. This is it. Because what we are saying is we are already at that position. Many people around the country will tell you that they have known someone who has suffered from COVID-19. Those that have sought admission to hospitals, that have gone to one hospital to another, hospital hopping overnight, sometimes even over 48 hours, because you cannot find a bed for you to be admitted. You cannot get that oxygen that you require in these hospitals. This is where we are. It's not just about doctors. Yes, 10 doctors have died, but many more Kenyans have died. So this should actually be citizens telling their government, you have 21 days. You shape up. Or you, from the very top, Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, everybody else, the governors, just get out. Tutajisort. Forget this whole story of, one thing or the other. It's too much talk for nothing.
The never-ending drama and the stories around something that which, at the face of it, or rather on the face of it, is really fairly straightforward.
It needs to get serious in order for people to take notice. In order for those who need to do something about it. Because if it's clear you can't do your job, then you have no business being there. And what Professor Lukoya said, We've pulled resources to give you this position to say, expend these duties on our behalf, and you're not doing it. Move. Move.
Okay, coming up to the top of the hour. In the next hour, we want to talk about now COVID-19 in the counties, in the villages. So you know that COVID is now being transmitted in the community. Let's talk about that. What is it that we want to see? What is it that we ought to do ourselves as the people? What is it that we want our government to do? Our healthcare system to provide? Our security system to provide? What do we want to see? What do we expect to see? That's a conversation we'll be having, and we'll be asking you to join in this conversation. 0719 012 600 40127 is the SMS number, or Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
Okay, we're looking at Mombasa Road where inbound it's bumper to bumper. Construction is going on, guys, so you want to plan your journey ahead of time. You're planning to use Mombasa Road this morning. Know that it is packed all the way from the SGR, all the way through to Capital Centre, out then towards Nyeri Stadium, bumper to bumper and not a space to breathe. This is what we're looking at now. Also, Thika Road is moving. It's moving slowly, but it's doing a lot better than Mombasa Road is this morning. Getting into the CBD won't be too much of a headache on that side of things. Within the CBD, however, that's totally different. The whole highway then from the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts all through to Westlands is packed. Moving slowly as well. Hopefully it won't cause too much of a headache at this point. The Eastern and Southern bypass is not a problem there. Moving slowly on some parts, especially as you veer off Mombasa Road, but you should be okay using those. Langata Road and Gong Road looking all right as well. Moving slowly, but moving all the same. You shouldn't have too much drama there. Let us know what you see. If your neck of the woods is stuck somehow, Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
2.5 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on KTN Home on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru is 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We're also live streaming the show on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. C.T. Muga, what is today's proverb?
Ears that do not listen accompany the head when it is chopped off.
Ears that do not listen accompany the head when it is chopped off. Asante sana.
Bear in mind, the ears are actually nestled
On the head. So there's absolutely
For
no
most
other
folks.
way this would happen if the head is being chopped off. Okay. So let's talk about COVID in the community.
When we first heard of HIV, everything other than the reality of it was something that we were ready to face. And people gave it names. It was called witchcraft. It was called an inexplicable disease. Anything and everything was used to explain it, except that this was actually a disease. It was caused by a virus, and its mode of transmission with time was clearly known. Now, because people preferred to believe what they wanted, the net result was that in many parts of this country, it struck with the devastating consequences. Entire communities were wiped out. Regionally, you ended up with communities where elders were now children. 17-year-olds were the elders, 15-year-olds, 19-year-olds. But this seems to have been forgotten because ARVs came into being. People now know you don't have to die the next day or within the month. You can live for as long as your Creator intends you to live. Then we heard of COVID. It is a disease that only people who have means get. It isn't there. Have you ever heard of anyone who has COVID? Have you seen of anyone who has COVID? This particular narrative has actually held sway for the longest time. I was having a conversation with some colleague of mine, a friend of mine really, on the weekend. And he told me something that alarmed and then shocked me, and it forced me to perhaps sample size and talk to other people in the region. He told me that he hardly ever leaves the house now, unless he absolutely has to, because from his own family background, the number of people in the last 2 months they've had to bury, he says he no longer goes for funerals. If he has a little money, he will send to help. He says his neighbors, people he has known, places he used to go to, he says he no longer goes there simply because he has realized that COVID is not something that it's not what people think it is. It is real and people are dying from it. When I made my sample sizing and called other people in the western part of the country to ask them what the situation was like, I got even further alarmed. They were telling me a replica of exactly what this friend of mine had told me. Essentially, what we technically refer to as community infection is not just upon us, it's in much larger numbers than we even anticipate. People are dying, not in small numbers, but in droves. Now, I don't know what it is about us human beings when we require disaster to sort of like wake us up to the reality of a situation. But when it comes to COVID, the disaster occurred, the reality is with us. It's not going to happen, it has happened. In our own way, we know that there's a vaccine on the way. We know that there are vaccines on the way. We know that there are trials for vaccines on the way and ongoing. We know all this. But in the meantime, as all this is happening, people are contracting COVID and people are dying from COVID-related complications. And that is the reality of Kenya as we have it today.
You're saying that people are being buried
Yes.
in our villages
Yes.
from COVID.
Yes. Yes.
That this is happening.
Let me repeat the word yes.
That in villages, in our community,
People are dying.
People are dying, and people know that this
Yes.
person we are burying died
Yes.
of COVID.
Yes.
People actually know.
They know because they have been told about. You see, when much as people may say one thing, it doesn't mean they don't know what constitutes the disease. They do know, and they do understand. And when it's one person, well, that person just died. When it's a number, and someone is talking about people they know, not what they've heard, they know. And when it is explained, they realize this is COVID.
Okay. You know, a couple of months ago, the disease, in the perspective of the people in especially the rural areas, the rural counties of Kenya, was COVID is a Nairobi disease.
It is.
COVID is a Nairobi and Mombasa issue, and hapa kwetu hakuna COVID. And you're saying now that this has changed.
I'm saying.
Are you saying that if we went to any random part of this country and ask, do you know someone who has died of COVID? We are likely to be told yes.
That's what I'm saying. And to corroborate what I'm saying is the strain on our healthcare system right across the country. I'd like to know of a county that can tell you the health system is not strained right now. Why is it strained? Because people can't get care from the village level as we speak of. So they now have to go to the big towns where the facilities are bigger. And that's where the strain is. And the strain isn't ending, it's continuing. How is there strain? Remember, people fall sick, that's why we have hospitals. But our hospitals manage it. Now, Professor Lukoi told us something very interesting. He said, we're not prepared. Forget COVID, even to manage emergencies, we're supposed to be prepared. Actually, when you think about it, when you enter any hospital, there's an emergency entrance, isn't it? Meaning, they know that the illness is not something that gives you 21 days notice. It can strike in a day, it can strike in hours, so you have to be prepared for it. Those systems are being strained, some are being overburdened. Remember, we also come from a country where people who have the information don't always give you the accurate information deliberately. We were discussing the number of children who are supposed to be in our schools and the funding that has to go with it, and an issue has come up. Some of these numbers were clearly cooked. So, what makes you think that when it comes to people dying and people presenting themselves as presenting a case that favors them, what makes you think they will not want to present a case to make them look good when the reality is the complete opposite?
So numbers could also be getting suppressed.
Yes.
Well, I mean, look
in
at
the
what
reporting
we
of
have.
the numbers.
Yes.
Sure, but look at what we have in terms of information that has come out of Kemri Welcome, right? Kenya has more cases of COVID-19 that is being documented by the Ministry of Health, and this is according to Kenyan researchers, right? The study done by Kemri Welcome Trust states that Kenya is experiencing a second rise in its confirmed COVID-19 cases. That's something that we can all see very clearly. The study done in October on the status of COVID-19 in the country revealed that confirmed cases occurring in rural counties have increased over time from March 12th when it was first reported, okay? Preliminary findings show that the antibody testing from several sources indicate that the prevalence of exposure has significantly increased in counties over time, especially that of Nairobi and Mombasa. But you're also seeing an increase in the rural areas of these counties. So it is clear that there's prevalence, and it was also noted that this was in Kwale, Kilifi, and other counties of Nyanza, Rift Valley, Eastern and Northeastern. So it's clear that people in the areas whereby before it was, this is a Nairobi disease or this is a big city disease, it is, or infection, it is clear that this has spread around the country. That one is, I mean, that's obvious. And people
So
have taken
it's prevalent.
cognizance. Yes, and it's now more prevalent. So gives rise to what you were saying. Is it then possible that the numbers that are being reported on a daily basis are just pure... they're a percentage of what the true
Of the
number
actual reality.
of the actual reality on the ground. That the numbers that we are seeing or that we are being told is not the case. Now, there are two things that can happen here. Is to say that people then need to realize that you need to be a lot more careful from what CT is talking about and the decisions that people are making. I'm not going to go out and visit as often as I normally would. If I don't have business outside of my house, I am not going. Because you could be taking the precaution, but how sure are you that others that you would come into contact with are doing the same thing? You can't know that. You can't know that. There are people that you may have people were sat somewhere and you don't know where this other individual has come from. You do not know. So this is what we are dealing with. So have people taken more precaution? Yes, they have. However, again, remember, this big city disease that people are talking about is where you see a lot of people not doing what you hope they would do when it comes to then measures to guard against COVID-19. It's happening, and I think we have gone past the point where we say people should be careful. It's happening. So there are many layers in terms of action of what needs to be done. Yes, we know what needs to happen on a national level and what government needs to do. We know what individuals and people and their families need to do to take care and be careful. But here we are dealing with something, it goes beyond just saying. This is now when push comes to shove, rubber meets the road and say, things actually need to be done. Can you do everything you can to make sure that you protect yourself? Because the truth of the matter is, if you get sick today, not tomorrow, not that there are two left and there's something to use. If you get sick today and you have symptoms that have overwhelmed your system, you get sick today, present yourself at a medical facility, chances are you will be turned back because they cannot take care of you. That's what we're dealing with. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not call it something else. It's a bad situation.
Everything that has to do with funding healthcare in this country currently has a scandal attached to it. For this year, the Kenya government budgeted 114 billion Kenya shillings for health. Budgeted. That is minus the Harambee committee efforts, donations, NGOs, Jenga Jirani, any other effort that has been made locally. They even then decided, why don't we take this 5 billion shillings and give it to the counties so that the counties can actually boost forward thinking on the part of the government. Let's get prepared. We have a problem on our hands. Let's build capacity. We saw how that went. At the time when we first reported it, they said, well, only 20 of us are not prepared. But when an audit was done, 5 counties already. 5. The other 42, God alone knows what on earth they were doing. Now, that forward thinking of the government was accompanied, in this instance, with them actually even giving money. Now, the issue of accountability comes in. We have issues even determining where on earth that money went. One, whether it was all released, whether it has actually been released, whether the counties have received it. Then came the issue of counties and the money they should have been receiving for their functions. That was again an issue. Now, we have something that from the very onset, we understood something called contact tracing. Contact tracing, where COVID is concerned, is of importance, and primarily because COVID is aerosol, it's airborne. Someone can breathe it into your face. I'm being facetious here, but deliberately so. It isn't like HIV where you require actual physical contact, whether it is the razor blade, whether it's with the transfusion or through sexual contact. But contact was necessary. You couldn't sneeze HIV into someone's face. Okay? Now, the reality of all this, against a backdrop of reporting that isn't real time, because that again is the issue with our reporting. It isn't real time. What we are being told isn't something that happened the day before. It's accompanied by yet another problem of our testing capacity, which is good, but the ability to actually utilize the facilities that we have to do the number of tests that we require in a day. There's either this missing or that missing or this reagent or the other. There's always something happening in that ministry, always. And all these things that happen to prevent the person who should receive this care that they're supposed to receive for the money they have paid, because these monies we talk about, the 114 billion, those are taxes that we pay the government, our money. So here we are.
I feel like I'm walking into a hole asking this question, but is there something that can be done? Look at the situation we are in right now. Dr. Ochanji told us that there are only 300 ICU beds in the country. Countrywide, there are only 300 ICU beds. At the moment, they are full, right? Not 250, not 270. At the moment, as we speak, they are full.
Throw in HDU as well, full.
Do all that. If they're full. So if you went to a hospital today and you were requiring breathing support on a ventilator such, you would not be able to get one. There was a headline, I believe it was over the weekend, where the reason why an individual had passed away is because they did not get access to a ventilator. They had to go from hospital to hospital they could not find. Now, is there something that can be done today? Now, let's say by some miracle the money was found, the funds, were removed, something was moved about. Would we be able to increase capacity in this country now to be able to sort out the issues? Because look, if that's the case, today with people presenting with symptoms, they're going to die. Call it morbid.
Is it possible for something to be done immediately?
Today?
I believe so, yes.
Right.
Many of the cases of the people who are going to hospital and dying because they did not get access to oxygen, they actually do not need even the intubation.
No, they just need
to have oxygen supply. Hospitals do not have oxygen. The nurse who died in Isiolo that Dr. Ochanji was telling us, she did not need to be intubated. She could have been sorted before that. So is it possible for us to get oxygen and supply oxygen to the hospitals? Yes. Is it possible to set up that piped oxygen in specific wards? It is possible.
It is possible. Now, that's why I'm going to say this. If you're looking at something that is causing a problem, and on the other side you have a potential solution, and what stops you from doing that is just because you're not taking interest in sorting out that issue, then guess what? Let the doctors go on strike. Let more people die for you to be able to say, this is what needs to happen for something to be done. Let that morbid situation actually take place. Because if you have a solution and you're choosing actually not to do something about it, then let the morbid come in. Let that happen. Let it happen, as terrible as it sounds. And the humanitarian in me goes against that completely. But if that's what needs to happen, for some of these things to be set right, for a reset in the system to happen, let it happen.
I actually look at it, yes, I agree. Let the doctors go on strike. But I also feel that it's not just the doctors who need to go on strike. All of us as Kenyans need to realize that these doctors are going on strike over something that all of us are suffering. And we all ought to take action. We all ought to put our demand to the government and say, look, what the doctors are asking for, yes, give them the insurance and all, but all of us require that same services. All of us require to go to a hospital and find a hospital that's working. All of us require a government that is thinking proactively on what ought to be to be done. That's on the part of the government, but also on the part of the citizens. If we're talking about now people across the country saying, I know somebody who had COVID-19, I know somebody who got COVID and they recovered, or I know somebody who got COVID and unfortunately they died for whatever reason, they did not get immediate access to a health facility and all, then what is it that we can do? What are we doing to ensure that we stop doing this? Every time we argued about the issue of Tanzania and whether the spread of COVID in Tanzania, we kept saying one thing, you cannot hide death. So if people are dying, people will talk about, I know someone who died. People will talk about it. And the second thing is, when people start dying in large numbers, then what happens in a community? The community starts to react in its own way. CT, I'm sure you can give us examples of when when HIV started ravaging and taking away people in communities started reacting in a way.
Yes, they did.
There was an immediate reaction. So initially there was no understanding of what exactly this is. But in the case of COVID, we all know this is COVID. We know what it is. We know it's a disease. We know how it spreads. So why is it that people are not taking that flight reaction?
Part of the problem is because...
Or fight.
We suspended our fight and gave it to the government.
Mm-hmm.
An over-reliance on what the government should do. In my mind, it is the reshaping and almost killing of the initial Harambee spirit that we had. At independence and the period immediately after, it was clearly understood that the government wasn't building schools as fast as it should. Mm. The Harambee effort, this same mindset came into being. People started building schools. The church came in. Many schools that now exist, if you look at the history, they were formerly what you call Harambee schools or church schools. Mm. That's community, not government. Government came in when the thing had been built, it was working. Mm. There was a kind of school that were called assisted. The government provides you with teachers. But someone somewhere, I think when it comes to healthcare, I've seen in places where people have actually brought in this aspect of healthcare in a Harambee sense. But many of them are doing it for business. However, if you have a situation where the government who is supposed to provide this healthcare for you isn't, don't wait for them not to provide what you know they're not going to provide. You can get together as a group, not you as an individual, because communities, people have a variety of needs and a variety of abilities. If you bring together those community members, and among them, there'll be people who are healthcare practitioners. Mm-hmm. If you bring these people together, the same Harambee mindset and say, folks, can we do something about this? Something, in my opinion, will actually be done. And there are people who, over the years in this country, have shown the initiative of saying, look, I'm not going to wait for someone from the government to do this. It's something that can be done. Why don't we set out? Now, someone will say, but then the government will not do its duties. No. They're already not doing it. So the issue of them not doing it is not even a discussion. And what they do, we see and we know. Now, if there is a pitfall, if there is a gap, whether it's the national government or the county government, are we going to continue waiting for them to do what we know we've characterized them by? Or are we going to actually start saying, let's do something now about them? Professor Lukoy gave us a very simple solution. Get rid of them. Make sure that, he put it nicely. I'm going to say it verbatim. He says, the process of decision making when it comes to who you choose determines the sort of leaders you have. So you really need to think.
Prioritize.
Yes, think about this carefully. Don't rush. Don't get carried by the political waves and emotions of the time. Think carefully and determine, because your health, you're actually making a decision for your health. He brought it to health, and I like the way he did it. You are actually making a decision about how your health matters. Of course, every other matter concerned will be. But if you're not healthy, all these wonderful things we talk about doing, we can't do.
Yeah, and health is very, very expensive. If you look at the number of people who've died, if you ask people whether they've contributed to a Harambee in the last couple of months for people either in hospital or those even who have died and they've spent days in hospital, even for COVID. When you talk about COVID, you're talking about at least 1 million shillings of somebody who was in hospital, went to ICU, came out of ICU, blah, 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 blah. They've passed on. There's a bill, 1 million. It's all of you who are going to contribute to this. And it's all of you who are going to make sure that this person is given a decent send-off. But you are the ones who are contributing. Your government is giving you stories from above. So what is it that we can do then as a people? First of all, from preventative side of it, looking at what can we do to make sure that we curtail and stop the spread of the virus. And then what is it that we can do to demand action from our government and at the same time supplement what the government should be doing as it sorts itself out. As we sort out the government, what can we be doing in the meantime? Because we're in an emergency. The government isn't.
No, for them it's business as usual. But let's be kind. The vast majority of people who work in government actually do what they're supposed to do. They do a good job. They get to work. They even ensure that the things they're supposed to do are supposed. Now, what hits us is the decision-making process, not policy. Policies are good. The decision-making process.
At implementation. Huh?
Yes, where things now take flight. And it goes in the you're waiting for it here, the thing, you're told, oh, but it landed where? Some other places. But the destination was supposed to be here.
It's coming. It'll come.
It
was because of the wind.
The other's coming. You see, this issue of ventilators.
Take a break.
Let's take a break.
25 minutes after 8, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home. We want you to join the conversation when you come out of this break. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
This week, in your Nairobian newspaper, find out what happened to Kosewe, the city food tycoon and owner of your favorite fish joint. Landlord charged in court after pouring sewage on tenant's bed after rent dispute. Pet dog lands a man in court after biting a neighbor's child in East Lee. Man claims his 2 sons were abducted using juju. You have to love and hate boda riders and their daredevil theatrics. Also, find out why Zari, Diamond's ex's weight gain, should not be your concern. For these and many more stories, grab a copy of your favorite newspaper, The Nairobian, to make your week an interesting one. The Nairobian. We know where you live.
Are you ready? Tell the DJ turn it up, let the DJ bring it back. Tell him that you like that.
Yeah. Rude boy, I'm a Rudy. See my fans wanna shangilia.
It's that time again where we bring you the best of music and entertainment. The 6th edition of the Pulse Music Video Awards 2020 is here. Owning the virtual space in Kenyan music is the theme for this year, so get those nominations coming through and we will bring the acts to you. Simply log on to www.standardmedia.co.ke/PMVA and submit your favorite songs starting 3rd November to 17th November 2020, and we'll do the rest. This year, we are bringing the entertainment back to life. Pulse Music Video Awards 2020, the only way to get alive.
All right, still mostly cloudy and raining in some parts of Nairobi. At 23, that'll be the high today, and lows of 17. And it's 17 in Nakuru and mostly cloudy, highs of 23 and lows of 14. In Nyeri, it's cloudy at 17. 22 the high and lows of 13. Where in Eldoret, it's mostly cloudy at 13 with the highs of 22 and lows of 12. Light rain in Kisumu at 19 degrees. The high will be 26 today and lows of 18. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega, highs of 25 and lows of 14. where it's raining in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Mostly cloudy conditions in Malindi at 19, highs of 23 and lows of 16. Cloudy conditions rule the morning in Kampala at 19. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 18. Or in Dar es Salaam, it's mostly cloudy at 27, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Sunny conditions in Joburg at 20. Warming up today to 26, the high and lows of 16. Rain showers in Lagos still 31, the high and lows of 25. Where it's raining also in Kinshasa with highs of 29 and lows of 23.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
It's still Monday morning. I know you've been in traffic for so long you think it's Tuesday, but not yet. It's still Monday, especially for those on Mombasa Road. It looks like you've been in for a very long time. Bumper to bumper situation all the way from the SGR now, and even further back towards the Way Bridge at Mlolongo. It's taking you all the way then through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, moving slowly at this point. Hopefully it'll pick up as the minutes tick by. Thika Road not too bad as you're getting into the CBD. At the Pangani tunnel is where you see some traffic. Kiambu Road, yes, it is a mishmash. It is Monday morning. We expect this as well. Looking into industrial area as you're then trying to join Jogo Road as you get to the City Stadium roundabout. That's moving a little bit slowly, getting into the CBD, but it's not just at bumper to bumper status just yet. Not too bad in other parts of the city. Remember, you can use the eastern and southern bypasses. We don't have any issues there, at least not now. Should anything arise, don't hesitate to let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, online. In the room this and every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko. We are talking about the community spread of COVID-19 in the country. By and by, we're getting more and more people who have tested positive for COVID-19, have either gone through home-based care and recovered, have gone to hospital and recovered, or have gone to hospital and unfortunately died. There are those that even part of our listeners who reach out to us privately and they tell us, you know what you guys were discussing this morning, I actually know somebody who has gone through COVID-19 and they were going through home-based care and then they recovered. Or even some saying, I personally tested positive for COVID-19. I was through home-based care and some of my family members and some had to be taken to hospital. They recovered and the experiences go on and on. I know of people who have reached out to me and said of somebody who tested positive for COVID-19 in, let's say, Meru County. They did not get access to a hospital in Meru County. They had to be transferred, looking for a hospital that could admit them, all the way to Nairobi. In Nairobi, spent hours looking for any hospital that could admit them before they finally landed up in some facility that could only admit them just for 2 days. After 2 days, you appear to stabilize. They tell you, now, boss, go, because there are others that need these services. Dr. Ochanji, the vice chairperson of the KMPD, was telling us one of the doctors that died in the morning over the weekend is a doctor who tested positive for COVID-19, was working in Eldoret, had to be transferred from Eldoret looking for a facility. Nakuru, full. Naivasha, full. They were looking for a facility that could admit them. No facilities that are able to admit people. Somebody else, one of our listeners, reached out to us and said that they know of somebody who has lost their child, a teenage son, to COVID-19. Went to school, came back home, tested positive, and within a very short time, this person has died. So we are all increasingly getting these stories of people who have gone through the experience of COVID-19. And that's what we want you to do to us this morning. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Give us your experience of COVID-19. who you know, whether you know somebody, yes, and what they've gone through, whether you have gone through it at the same time. And also, as we talk about this, let's talk about whether there's any kind of behavior change in the community. Once a community knows that so-and-so passed on and we've buried them because they had COVID-19, is there any change in behavior? Are people now wearing face masks on their faces, or are they still wearing them on the chin? Is there any kind of reaction to this that we can see?
Well, I mean, just listening to what everybody's saying at the moment, Don says, this country needs a revolution. How long will we wait for a responsive government? And I think that points to what we are saying. If there's any kind of collective action that's going to be taken, at what point does the snap happen in the minds of people? Do more and more people need to die? Does it happen? Does someone close to you then need to suffer from the effects of COVID or suffer death? And then that then has a mushrooming reaction on the rest of the people to say, we actually are at a point where things are not good. Because the truth of the matter is, it's COVID today. Tomorrow it will be something else.
Yep.
And it will keep showing the underbelly of what the situation actually is. COVID, no pun intended, is a symptom. COVID and its effects are only a symptom showing what is really wrong or what really ails the government. Are Kenyans at the point whereby they have had enough and said that we cannot continue? For us, for the 47 million Kenyans who came together and exactly put together their resources, whether it was time, whether it was money, whether it was conversations that they had about the better Kenyan that they actually wanted, came together and handpicked and selected and said, this is what we actually want. Now, at this point, it is not working. What needs to happen to spur Kenyans to the point whereby they say, you know what, this is actually not what we bargained for. And I don't think that Kenyans are at the point whereby it's too much. As in, it has not gingered to the point whereby you're saying, we can't take this anymore. We can't take the language that has been fed to us over and over and over and over again. Something else needs to be done. So the country has not yet the people of the country has not yet issued its strike notice because things have not bubbled to the point of uncomfortability just yet. If it has happened, we would have seen that strike notice that you're saying is not just the unions that need to be giving, that Kenyans need to be given. The shoe hasn't quite bitten just yet.
Eric, actually go to the heart of the matter, really, because until we get to that level of fed-upness, if I use that term,
it's not there yet.
And say, look, folks, we know this country is not as broke as you're trying to tell us. And why we know is because we can see.
We can see the things you're doing, because if you're broke, you would not be doing those things. Right?
And if there's theft, you can't steal something which doesn't exist. It has to exist for it to be misplaced, misappropriated, stolen. It has to be. But even more significantly, even as we talk about COVID, you see, the effects that COVID will have on people will differ. There are those who may not have lost a loved one, but they've lost their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
Losing a livelihood isn't really far away from losing your life.
Yeah.
Because should disaster strike, you will not be in a position to find a way out, because all these things that we speak of require some money. Now, if I were to think carefully and suggest in my mind, I would say this, that I'm not saying something that has been said. I've read many, many people saying this right across the Kenyan divide. The opportunity that, inadvertent as it is, COVID has provided. It is an opportunity to change many, many things and to right many, many, many wrongs. At the level of the politician, we've been saying, right from the president, yes, tell us the truth. Just say it.
Be forthright. I mean, just
say it.
We can handle it.
Yeah, say it. And say it in a way that provides solutions, says, look, this is what we want to do. Let there be a way forward with the problems. But the speechwriter who wrote the last speech, the president, that guy sold at his shoulder. That guy sold...
shoulders out.
Out. He sold the president short. Because an opportunity, in that opinion, in that particular moment, was missed. Now,
then should we just stand at the tables then? Can we just tell the government the truth? Because the government, maybe the government doesn't know the truth. Maybe what the president tells us is his truth.
The government is that girl who's walking out in public thinking she looks very nice and everything is okay. And the crowd is saying, there's something wrong here. So it's time the crowd told this girl, look here.
Actually, you've given an interesting analogy. It reminds me of an analogy someone once gave me of says, when you are walking in, say, a public place like a restaurant, and everyone seems to look at you and smile, please look at your zip. You may have unzipped your trouser, but you don't, and they look and saying, oh, goodness, multicolored underpants. Okay.
There's a problem.
Yes, something you really don't want to display in public, but is being seen. Now, if you look at who we are as Kenyans, I think Eric today is on a roll. Maybe we need to tell the government precisely and politely that this thing isn't working and that our levels of fed-upness is increasing and we really don't want to be told stories.
The truth of the matter is that there's a pandemic.
Point
Truth of the
one.
matter is there's a health emergency. Truth of the matter is that the government has abdicated its responsibility and told us, live with yourselves. Truth of the matter is that the same government is still asking us for money so that it can run its affairs. As if those affairs are not the same as
they
ours.
don't ask you for money, they just take it.
Or they are coming to take our money.
They don't ask, they take it.
Now the Nairobi County government wants to take some 2,000 shillings from every house so that you get a fire license. See? Those are the truths. And the truth is, what we need right now, among the things that we need right now, is a health system that is able to handle what we are going through. A health system where you fall sick today, you go to the nearest health facility and you're able to get the services that you require. Not a health system where you'll spend 48 hours looking for a bed to be admitted. Not a health system where you go and you find doctors and nurses and other workers in that health facility who don't have PPEs. Where if you have COVID-19, you're basically exposing them. Where if you go and you don't have COVID-19, you're exposing yourself as well when you go to that hospital. This is the truth that we need to tell our government. When the doctors are giving 21 days strike notice because they're saying, look, we need PPEs. PPEs are at KEMSA. They were bought to you at what amount of money?
Distribute them to
They're
the
just
country.
lying there.
Forget about money. Who cares?
Does this thing make sense to you?
It doesn't make sense. You're saying that you're waiting for investigation. The 21 days that you gave it to do the investigation, you haven't even done that investigation. You don't even know what's going on. Oh, yeah, release the PPEs now. Let the people who need them have them. 6 doctors dying in 24 hours. Do we realize?
If I may join
do we
Eric.
realize that? Do we realize that what that meant essentially is that every 4 hours in one day, a doctor was dying. Why? Why? Because at some point they were exposed to this. Let's just put it as it is. Let's not call some mighty thing. They were exposed to this virus while caring for other people. They don't have adequate protective gear that they need to have this done. Meanwhile, in a warehouse somewhere, there's PPE sitting, waiting for some
investigations.
investigation. I don't know it's coming out of which extraterrestrial
I have to ask this
place
question.
to be done.
Are they really there?
Why? They gave the order just a week
No.
ago. Hold
Are
on.
those PPs really there?
They're there, CT.
How do we know?
Okay, well, we don't know because we've not seen them. Okay,
Yeah.
we have been told
That's
that they're
the point
there.
it is raising.
But here, I get it. But here we are
In this country.
Let's just assume that they're there. Let's assume that they're there.
That's a good discussion.
Okay.
Let's assume those PPEs are there. Look at one of the issues that we're talking about now with the unions and doctors across the country. We don't have PPEs. Then you have a mountain of PPEs that's sitting in a warehouse somewhere, assumedly.
Yep.
And you can't just say, open it up and release them. What rocket science is it going to take to figure it out? And I keep saying, even rocket science, somebody figured it out because they sent a spaceship to the moon. They figured it out.
Rocket science is not impossible.
Somebody can figure it out.
For us
Even
to discuss
brain
it, it means
surgery,
it's
the way it
understood.
is.
Somebody figured it out.
Let's go to the phone line. 0719-012-600. Your own experience to COVID-19. Justus calling in from Kilifi. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm fine, thank you. How are
Just
you?
as how have you been? Long time.
I've been fine. I'm doing a lot of quarantine.
It's important.
At this rate.
It's important.
Yes.
First and foremost, I really, really want to appreciate what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have consistently kept this conversation at a very high level, and this is really important to what we need. I wanted to begin my comment by saying that it's time we acknowledge the fact that I think we are on our own in terms of the government and in terms of the health system, especially mwananchi wa kawaida. Unapambana na hali yako. You're on your own. That's if we begin from there, then we need to shift the conversation and by accepting that COVID is going to spread everywhere. It has already spread. It's with us in the community.
Yep.
So it's no longer about let's make sure it doesn't reach us. It has reached us. So we need to move the conversation to the next level. What do we do then? And as CDK keeps giving the chronology of events during the HIV pandemic, is that you need to shift the conversation to managing now. How do we manage the COVID that is with us? That could begin with us investing a lot on community education, on basic management things we can do. For instance, if a family member is asymptomatic, he has not reached the point at which he is supposed to be hospitalized, what do you do at the household level? Because he or she is going to be with you there, right?
Yep.
What are you going to do? In terms of accessing testing, when and why do we need to all of us go for testing so that we know our status in regard with the COVID condition? And then the other thing is this. As the doctors have been saying, not all of us need the maximum level of management of healthcare. For example, not all of us at the same time at the point of infection, you don't need to have a ventilator.
Yep.
You don't need to go for oxygen. But in the event that you need oxygen, how do we ensure that by the time you reach the hospital, you are reaching there in time, so that even if you get that oxygen, you'll get it at the right time and actually when it's helpful. Because in some cases, people are being rushed to the hospital when they have stopped breathing in the house.
Yeah.
In some cases. So I know we may not have the answers right now, but we need to really begin talking about managing, because it is with us. The other thing is cities pet favorite community health workers. How do we get them more involved and educated them so that they can contribute optimally in managing COVID at a community level? Because irrespective of what we want to say or whatever direction we take, it has arrived. As I speak from my social groups, my community, even sometimes to the extent of maybe some networks, family, friends, I know people in different situations of the pandemic. Some have gone to hospital, they have a bill of 1 million plus. He may be feeling better, but where is he going to get that million right now? NHIF in many cases is not even considering it. So essentially, like I said, Kenyans are on their own. Why don't we shift the conversation, including the government and the ministry? Why can't we begin educating people on basic management? Like if you have already been identified positive, but you're not in the state of going to hospital, what do you do to prevent
about that?
Getting worse? To prevent getting worse and also infecting others.
Very good.
Because we have to accept as a reality. And then lastly, one of the things, I think one of the weaknesses of our health ministry and the way we operate, it is over-regulated. Imagine even organizing a community outreach for health, just to educate the public. You need to get permission from Ministry of Health. You need to pay a health worker, an official of the health ministry to be with you, even having an outreach. This is also creating an impediment to basic access to community health literacy.
True.
Yes, it's
Thank you.
over-regulated. Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Justice.
you very much. Please keep on the conversation.
Asante
Thank you, Justice.
Thank you. Okay.
Lazaro in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Nimefurahia mjadala wa leo. Kenya, we are in a very serious situation as such that ukiona mtu ambaye ukienda hospitali kuna emergency sector, unaachana na wale wagonjwa ambao unajua hawa kidogo they can wait, unashughulikia yule ambaye ni emergency. So Kenya, we have to deal with the emergency. Hii COVID-19 itafajia watu, tutaendelea na mambo ya rally, tutaendelea na mambo ambayo itasaidia mwananchi in future. We have to deal now. Kwa sababu these things ambazo tunaendelea ku-implement, hata hiyo miradi wacha ikae, kwa sababu life is better than whatever we are doing.
It's a bigger thing right now. Thank you, Lazaro. Thank you very much.
Bigger thing. Kwa sababu tukiangalia viongozi wetu ambao wanahangaika katika hii siasa politics thing, ndio they are misleading us na ndio wanafanya COVID inasambaa zaidi.
Asante. Felix in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, I'm enjoying the conversation. But I just have a question. As we talk about COVID,
Yep.
do we have the free centers anywhere that you might know?
Free centers?
Yes, for testing, because it's a bit costly for the normal mwananchi just to work in Nairobi hospital or somewhere.
Actually, to be honest, I do not know whether there is anywhere where they're offering free services.
The free
Is there?
services were offered by the county government of Nairobi a while back.
Right.
Just for a weekend.
Nairobi
For a
Medical
weekend,
Services.
and that was, it was once and that was it.
So there's no free currently?
No, not that we know of. The issue is the costs will vary. If you go to a government hospital, the costs will probably be lower than if you go to a private hospital. But to tell you that we know of a place where you can get free testing, no. Even government facilities, you will be asked to pay.
Okay, like government, minimum of how much?
That I cannot tell you because I actually don't know. No.
All right, I'll try and confirm, then just visit there.
Do that, please. Do that. It's important.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Asante
And
sana,
keep doing the
Felix.
good work.
Thank you very much. 0719-012-600. We're asking you to share your experience with COVID-19 in your neighborhood, where you come from. You know somebody who's gone through COVID-19 experience. You know somebody who's been hospitalized. Maybe it's you who's gone through the entire process. Just tell us about it and what's happening about this. I mean, are you able to access the services? Starting from that, you have to pay for testing. Then you have to pay for hospitalization. Just as it's just telling us about somebody who went through, they have recovered, but the bill is $1 million. So when a bill is $1 million plus, and we have a government that is talking about BBI and I don't know, talking about the other things, where are we? We're on our own. Let's just hear from Rebecca before you comment. Rebecca, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just want to add something on the conversation.
Please.
I have a colleague of mine who had COVID-19.
Okay.
He had COVID-19 like 4 months ago, and he was treated at home, but it has resurfaced again because he told me he was feeling unwell. Sasa nilikuwa nashindwa, kwani ugonjwa mtu unaweza pata alafu ukielekea kupona ina resurface tena?
I don't think it's a question of ukianza kupona. Unaweza ukapona kabisa na ukapona na ukaipata tena.
Yeah,
to answer your question, ndio unaweza.
Ni ile aligonjeka, akatibiwa, akaona amepona kabisa. But ikakuja imeresurface tena.
Nikuulize Rebecca, ukipata malaria na upate matibabu na upone, unaweza kuipata tena?
Hawezi pata tena.
Malaria unaweza. Unaweza.
Yeah, Rebecca, I think it's also important to find out, had the person been tested and tested negative, so that we can say that this is a reinfection. Maybe they had actually not tested negative. Could have been feeling better, but you haven't recovered.
Okay. Then I need the government to issue strict instructions to people, because where I stay, no one wears a mask.
Unaishi wapi Rebecca?
COVID. Kawangware.
Okay.
No, what are you saying, Rebecca? Nobody wears a mask.
Yes. Nobody wears a mask. Nobody wants to believe that there's COVID-19.
Why do you think they behave this way? Is it because they
don't believe, they have never seen anyone who has fallen sick of this disease.
Okay.
But have they seen people who have fallen sick?
They have never seen anyone.
Okay. So they don't know anyone who has fallen sick of COVID. So they still haven't internalized it.
Yes.
Yani huko Kangwara hakuna matanga?
Matanga ziko tu, lakini matanga za kawaida, si za COVID-19.
So unatofautisha vipi? Unajuaje hii ni matanga ya COVID na hii nyingine si ya COVID?
Hata ijuliki juu, kwa sababu watu huku hawajai believe, watu tu wanagonjeka ugonjwa tu, labda cancer, AIDS, vitu kama hizo, wanakufa na waambiwi kama ni COVID.
Thank you very
watu
much,
wamedharau, hata ukiambia mtu hataki kusikia.
Asante Rebecca.
Okay, sawa.
Thank you. 0719-012-600. The conversation around COVID-19. Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since 7 a.m. It's now coming up to 7 minutes to 9. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home, 7 to 9. But this conversation happens 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM. If you're in Nairobi, just tune in to 94.4. In Mombasa, 87.9. In Kisumu, 102.5. Nakuru and its environs, 96.0. Eldoret and the North Rift region, 96.7. Nyeri, 90.9. Malindi is 97.7. You can also follow us on Facebook. We are live streaming the show, Spice FM KE, or Twitter, Spice FM KE, or also on YouTube. That is Spice FM KE. See you tomorrow, KTN Home.
Spice FM, Nakuru. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up
So
your
still have
life.
that issue of there are people who are behaving as if they don't really believe it's there. And there are those that have gone through the experience. It's a painful experience, especially those that have gone through hospitalization and they come out with a heavy bill.
This is where the frustration then could
And
kick
those
in.
that have been buried.
This is where the frustration then would kick in, because if you're saying that you need some kind of collective action whereby it's clear that, there's government apathy towards doing something about, this problem. Okay, it's no big deal. We need to sort out other things first. So if you have that on that side, and then you have people who don't believe this thing exists at all. And then on this side, you have people who clearly it has affected, whether they've been unwell, somebody in their family has been unwell, and unfortunately, somebody in their family has died. Do you see now the frustration then that would be if you're saying you're looking for some kind of collective action when you have so many people on different sides and you're asking the same people to come together to act in a certain way to then move a government to react? Do you see how difficult it
Can I
would
ask you
be?
a question? Do you really think that everyone who reportedly says they don't believe there's COVID believes there's no COVID?
No, I don't think so. I think that even there's part of your mind, part of your conscience that tells you that for sure, even if I haven't seen it, it can't be that everybody's speaking about this same thing and some people are complaining of having been sick or died, that it doesn't exist. I don't think so.
Something like, I have to go back to HIV again. The really difficult part of the discussion about HIV was when it was understood that predominantly it spread through sexual contact. It stigmatized the disease to a degree that you cannot imagine. So no one wanted to be associated with the disease. Why is it that we discuss malaria freely?
Yep.
We talk about cancer freely.
Yep.
Think of any other disease freely. If, say, for instance, COVID didn't have the economic consequences that it clearly has, if it didn't have the costs related to it and the complications that we keep hearing, which came at a time when we're experiencing a recession, do you think we'd be discussing COVID in the same way? No. The thing is, there are times you would rather be in denial. It keeps you going because to face the truth as it is.
So it's not that we are saying I don't believe there's
No,
COVID. It is the denial. It is until it comes very close to me.
I'm not going to believe this.
I am not going to behave as if it exists.
Until I or somebody close to me gets sick or dies, then it doesn't mean anything to you.
Yes.
Let's hear from Alvin, who is in Nairobi. Alvin, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
My name is Alvin. I'm actually a doctor, and I've been following your conversation.
All right.
Now, I think where the government is going wrong is it's not issuing proper guidelines to the populace, so people know exactly what to do. As it is, we just keep on hearing the number of people getting sick per day, the number of people dying, but we're not given concrete information on the reproduction numbers. That's how fast the infection is spreading. Now, based on that, in places like the UK, there are those tier systems where, we are at, level 1, 2, or 3, depending on the infection rate and what people should do at those particular levels. So as of now, in my opinion, based on the statistics I've seen, we are actually at a very critical stage where we should be having lockdowns. In March, when we had very few cases, we went for a lockdown for several months. And at that point, it was unwarranted. At this time, when there are no ICU bed capacities, healthcare workers are going to go on strike. This is time to call for the so-called circuit breaker lockdown so that you reduce the number of infections.
And you feel that the government also, in terms of even communication, what you've said, every day in the briefings, it's in the last 24 hours, the number of tests conducted, out of those, how many tested positive, and unfortunately, we lost X number of people. And this is the daily, conversation that we keep having. What else should the government be telling us in these briefings?
Yeah, they should tell us, where are the flashpoints, exactly where are the infections happening, what are the clusters, so that if I'm in Nairobi, I'm in Westlands, or I'm in Embakasi, I should know, this is where infections are coming from. And it's not just enough information telling us absolute figures. We need to have relative figures, so you know that the reproduction rate of this virus is A, B, C, D. At the moment, I'm just speculating, but I'm sure it's way over 3, and that's a very critical number. And if you look at Europe right now, they're all shut down because they were where we are like 2-3 weeks ago, and because of the shutdowns, they're now going way below the reproductive number of 1, which is where we all want to be. Yes, so they should give us more concrete information. Just telling us, 24 people died, 1,000 people are infected. It doesn't really help. For example, I took a COVID test on Friday. I'm still waiting for the results. So it's not. We have a lag. It's not reporting real time. So they can't tell us over the last 24 hours because my test was done on Friday morning. I'm still waiting for the results. So if it's reported today, that will be 3 days, of lag time.
How much does it cost? You remember there was a caller who asked how much it cost.
Around 8,500.
This is in a private facility.
Yes, which is ridiculous. For example, I just came back into the country. I did a test in Germany, same PCR test. I paid around 40, 50 euros, and it took me 6 hours to get my results.
This is 8,000 and you wait for more than 48 hours.
Exactly, more than 48 hours. So I think the government needs to educate people, and people need to, right now, take care of themselves. Don't wait for the government to tell you stuff to do. People are going about their normal business, not wearing masks, no social distancing.
Thank you.
I know, as if this thing is not there. Yeah.
Alvin, thank you very much.
Okay, well.
Asante sana. Conversations continue. It's now 9 o'clock.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, so still some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning and moving quite slow as you are trying to approach General Motors. After that, you'll open up for a little bit, but then get back into it right around Bellevue, all the way through to Nyeri Stadium. Yeah, it's going to be one like this for the next few weeks, especially because of the the works on the expressway, rather. Okay, as you get to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, however, clog up again as you go on to the CBD and then also Westlands thereafter. So there's traffic there. There's also traffic on Thika Road. It's moving slowly, however, as you get to the Pangani Tunnel, coming off of Kiambu Road, where it is bumper to bumper. That's what we see there. Let's see other areas. Getting into industrial area as well, there is a problem. You will be stuck right around the Lunga Lunga area, and then coming out towards Joko Road into the CBD, it's clogged as well. Okay, so we're in the middle of traffic hour still for a Monday morning. We'll see what it looks like in a half hour or so. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Talk to us there, or 40127. Text us.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, 3 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation as we begin this new hour. CT, what is today's proverb?
Yes. Ears that do not listen this is my addition, tend to accompany the head when it is chopped off.
Tend to? Will often?
Yes, in Kiswahili, yaenda ikawa.
Yaenda ikawa. Sikio lisilosikiza wosia.
Yeye.
Takatwa na kichwa.
Taenda na kichwa.
Taenda na kichwa ikikatwa. Yes, so that is today's proverb, and I think it's apt for you as an individual. You have heard about the warning. There's COVID-19, what you need to do. The ear that does not listen, when it comes time for the head to be chopped,
It'll
that
go.
ear will go. Also applies to Gava.
You?
Where? You know, and you're told, where?
You know, they always...
You don't even... You're not... Where?
You know, Eric, what is actually interesting, yeah? They don't listen. Peru has had 5 presidents in the last 5 years.
Presidents.
In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And the one that they currently have was there barely a week. See, they have a situation where it is very, very clear how it is the population can actually use their numbers and how the population can actually use their voice to be heard. Okay? The interim president was somebody by the name of Manuel Merino. Okay? Now, he resigned Sunday, 1 week after being president. Now, he had taken over from someone with the name of Martin Vizcarra. Now, this gentleman was popular among young people. He felt that he is the sort of person who represented the problems that they've had for a very long time and was able to listen. Remember, he represented to them. I'm giving this as an example because there are extremities in every case. It doesn't help the country very much if you keep changing presidents every year. There's no continuity.
Yeah.
But
or stability.
Yes, but nonetheless, it also shows you the extent to which democracy can actually be taken and the seriousness with which certain matters can be handled.
I think that also you look at the people of Peru and they're at that point where they have reached that level of fed upness. And they say, you know what, forget it. Even if you, the new one, comes and you start to do rubbish here, even you will remove you until we get to the one that is actually doing what they said they're supposed to do.
Did they have that
to
referendum
get to that
they were
point?
supposed to have?
No, that was Chile who was
that was
supposed to have a
Chile, yes.
referendum, right? So people of Peru, it's not a matter. We don't care. Don't write it down. People of Peru said, "Yeah, you're not promising us anything on paper. Forget about it. You come, you know that the people make a difference when they've gotten to the point that they're not going to continue to take nonsense over something that you promised that you were going to do.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of just speaking at an issue anymore. You come, you don't operate in the manner in which we expect you, come and go.
And sit down.
Yes.
Let's talk business. We've partnered with Google for the last couple of weeks, and we are going to have this conversation for a couple more days. This is on how to help you get your business online, get your business more visibility, get your business more opportunities where you can even find new markets for your business, for the products and services that you trade in. Now, so far what we've learned from these conversations that we've been having, number one is that you can get your business online as cheaply as free. You get your business visibility by creating just a simple profile on something called Google My Business, where you can even link your business website. You can link your telephone number where people can just call you directly. All this is available. Once you're there, also you find new tools that have been introduced by Google also for free, like one that we were discussing last week, Market Finder, where as a business, let's say you trade in leather, you can find what other markets people are really, really looking for leather and leather products, and you then find ways of exploring those new markets. So we've had these conversations with a Google expert, and this is Rosemary Momanyo Pio. She's the SME lead for East Africa at Google, and she is joining us again this morning. Good morning, Rosemary.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Had a lovely weekend, I presume.
I did. Good morning, City. Good morning, Du.
Good morning, Rosemary.
Good.
So let's talk about business then. What is it that you'd like us to learn today?
Thank you for that introduction, Eric. So just a refresher, I wanted us to go deeper into one of the questions that I got last week from CT. Or now that you have a business and you are able to export your products internationally with Market Finder, how then do you market your products? But before I go into the how to market your products internationally, who wants to guess where the word marketing came from? CT? I'm hopeful that you can have an idea.
Good morning. How are you today, Rosemary?
The king of deflection.
Okay, let me help you. So the term marketing came from a Latin word meaning to market or merchant. So if you go to any market today, like if you were to walk around the market and what you see are merchants who are selling their products, and they tend to be yelling, selling potatoes or tomatoes, and it's really just a one-to-many, and it's normally broadcast. And that's how the word marketing came from. It's how are you able as a market to be able to create awareness of your products to those who are walking by. And then your hope is that whoever is walking by will hear you shouting at the top of your voice, and hopefully they'll stop by your stall and pick your tomatoes or your potatoes, and that's how it worked. Today, it's a little bit more sophisticated, thankfully. You're able to have almost like a dialogue, a conversation with a potential customer. So as opposed to hoping that you get the right person to walk by and hear you making noise, you're able then to put out your message, and the right person who is looking for your product will hear what you're saying and then come to you. So I want just to dive deeper into this product that we discussed last week and walk you through the journey on how, as a merchant, you can be able to market and have a dialogue one-to-one with a potential customer looking for your product. So the first thing, to go global, you have to speak local, right? So that means is, first of all, figure out who you're talking to, right? What is their main language spoken? Are there any important dialects you need to be conscious of? What is their customer journey? And then how are you able to reach them at that, where they are in that customer? And I think you're all experts now. We discussed this in the first week, but it's all about being very clear where they are in the journey and then being able to reach them at that journey point. And then most importantly, how do they respond to advertising for products like yours? So if you're selling leather like we had from Eric this morning, how do they respond to previous leather advertising elements? What's the competition? Who is the competition? What are they doing? So being able to understand a little bit about the competitor in that market and what they're currently doing. And what's very important also is what is the cultural landscape and what matters to your market. So we want to be very clear about knowing about the culture dynamics and being able to speak in that dialect that they're already accustomed to. And then finally, what motivates these customers to buy? So this is how you're able to then be local by being global. So I'm just going to stop there and see if there are any questions about this conversation and this one-to-one dialogue with a potential customer. Good, great. So how then do you go about doing this? So there's 3 platforms that I wanted to highlight. We'll talk about one today. The first one is Google Search. And the second one is the display network. And then the third one is the video network, which I think you all know as YouTube. So with Google Search, what's important there is you're able then to have a dialogue with a potential customer by saying, you know what, if people are searching for leather products, make sure when we type in the keyword leather products and they're in US or they're in Germany or they're in the UK, my landing page shows up, and they're able then to find my leather products on my landing page. That way, you won't just show up randomly when people are searching for shoes or, food. They'll have to type in the keyword leather products, and when they type in those keywords, then you show up. That means that way you're able to be very relevant to the actual customer. The number 2, in the event they don't click on your landing page, for you it's free advertising. You've not lost any money. You've just built for yourself awareness, but you haven't paid anything for that ad showing up. The only time you actually end up paying is if they type in leather products and they see Eric's website there and they click on Eric's website, then they are charged on a cost per click, CPC, right? If they don't click, again, it's free. You'll only be charged as a merchant if an SME a customer actually clicks on your landing page. and then they come to your website, in this case, Eric's website, they see his leather products, and then they browse through and figure out what they're looking for. But remember, if they don't click, for you, it's free advertising. There's no cost to you. You only be charged a cost per click, and that cost per click will vary based on the market. It could be anywhere from USD 1 cent to as high as a little bit, even more than $10. So it'll vary on your market. And of course, the more advanced markets like in the US, the UK, the cost per click is much higher. But in markets that are a little bit more nascent like ours, it's a much, much lower cost per click. So you're able then to help get yourself more customers. But remember, this customer is one who's actively looking for leather products. And therefore, you're able to have a one-to-one dialogue with them and get them to come to your landing page.
Okay. So a question that's coming in is interesting because she's saying, just as you said, go global but speak local. So what if I have a product that is sourced locally, but my market is outside of the country? How then does this work?
So my product is sourced locally. Okay. Can I get an example of what that could be so we can be able to answer?
I'm not sure what kind of example she would have given. However, okay, if I could just think of one.
Maybe she just targets her market.
Maybe her clientele is outside of the country for a specific reason. But she's saying that
she makes them here.
She makes them here and maybe sends them out.
Okay. That's still fine. So you can still source for your raw materials locally, right? Make your product in Kenya. And you can still then go and advertise for your product internationally. So let's just do an example. So for example, back to example, so I'm able to source my local leather in Kenya. And then I'm able to sell my handbags and my shoes and my belts to people in Japan, for example, right? So in that case, what you do is you would create a campaign that targets people who are in Japan. What would be great is to understand what language should you use when you're building this campaign. Do they speak English or Japanese? So it'll be important to understand, to be local to Japanese, I think you need to speak Japanese. That means your campaign needs to be created in Japanese lingo. All your assets, your words, your banners should all be relevant to the local Japanese culture. That way you're able then to speak their local language and have them shop for you when they're in Japan and they're browsing for handbags or shoes or belts. They'll see your ad showing up and it'll be in Japanese. They can click and then come and buy directly from you, even though you're based in Kenya.
All right, so coming back to, you said it's paid per click, depending on somebody has come. Yeah, it's someone has come, they've seen the search result, they've seen my leather company, and then they decided to click on that link to go to my website so we can start engaging. That's when that's when I'm going to be billed.
Correct.
Is it possible for me to determine how much I'm going to be billed before I put up my advert?
Yes, you can. So the beautiful thing about this product is that you're able then to create for yourself a daily budget and say, you know what, Google, I don't want to spend more than 200 shillings a day on all of my advertising. So when I reach that limit, cut off my spend. That way I don't go beyond my budget. Or Google, you know what, I want to put together a monthly spend. So I don't want to spend more than 5,000 shillings in a month. So when I reach that threshold in the month, cut off my spending. But then also what you'll know is when you're building your campaign, you'll be able to say, fine, if the keyword belt shows up, or the keyword handbag, or the keyword, suitcase that is leather shows up, here are the range of keyword costs, right? So if you're in the US, the range will be, let's just say, USD 10 cents. If you're in Germany, it could be USD 15 cents. If you're in Kenya, it could be USD 0.01 cents. You're able to now know if I want to get the most of my investment, I know that I'll get the highest cost in the US. Let me figure out how much I want to spend per day or per month in the US, because that's what my target really is. And then I can say, fine, 80% of my spend should go to the US, 20% can then go to Germany, to the UK, and then to Kenya. So you're able then to assess ahead of time where you want to invest your efforts and where you want to sell your products to, and you'll be able to estimate and say, fine, I know it's going to be higher in the US. Let me cap my daily monthly spend and not spend beyond this amount daily or monthly.
Can I restrict and block out those expensive areas? So say, for instance, I want to sell my shoes only to the people in Nairobi. I don't want to spend money so someone to click on this advert in the US or even in Mombasa.
Yes. So you could say, Google, I want to have my ad show up to people in Nairobi and in Mombasa, the end. But if you want to say, you know what, I want to have people limited to maybe my jurisdiction, or I want to look at East Africa, you can decide upfront where your boundaries should be, either country specific, or you want it to regional specific, or you want it to be global. So yes, you can define upfront where you want your ads to be seen.
How granular can we be? Remember when you started, we were talking about a plumber in my area, and you picked a plumber who was somewhere on the west side of Nairobi. We picked a plumber who's somewhere on this other side of Nairobi. So is it possible for that plumber to advertise and say, I want this ad to be seen by only people around South B, South C?
Correct. So you can. So you're able to then decide based on your jurisdiction, based on your boundaries, where you want your ad to be. So let's say I'm delivering pizza, for example, and I can only deliver within a 5 km radius around me. You could say I want my ad to show up only in this 5 km radius around me, and therefore it's very targeted and it's very specific.
That's interesting.
Yes, and that's just only one platform. So it's search, which is, again, very, very targeted. It's very specific. It's having one-to-one dialogue. Tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about display, which is a little bit more one-to-many conversational. And then thereafter we'll talk also about YouTube, which is a little bit more engaging. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to test these products when you get back home and test to see how it works for you as a merchant.
Indeed.
Listening to you, Rosemary, you paint a really lovely, pun intended here, rosy picture. Okay. Now, the question I want to ask is this: what happens if someone tries exactly what we're talking about and it doesn't quite work out the way they want? What's the plan B?
Yes, so good question, Siti. So that's a very good thing. So for most people, it's quite complex to try and do this on their own. And so that's why we provide to them support. So we have our partner, I mentioned them before, Africa 118. They are available to support SMEs in Kenya, across Africa, to help build their first campaign. So normally it can appear daunting to decide, what is my budget? Do I use search? Do I use display? Or do I use video? How do I build my assets? What assets should I build? Where do I start? What's my jurisdiction? So all those are very hard questions to figure out if you're a first-time advertiser. So what we do is we have our partner hold your hand. And they say, fine, Eric, you want to sell leather products. You want to focus just in Nairobi. You have a daily budget of 200 Kenya shillings. Let's help you build your first search campaign. Here are the keywords to look out for. Here's your daily budget. Let's test your first campaign, your first day. Let's see how it goes. So for the first month, we will hold your hand with the goal of helping you understand how to build your capacity so that therefore onwards you can be able to do it on your own. But if you get stuck, we're still here to support you. So we have a partner whose job is just to support SMEs in Kenya, hold their hand, and help them build their first campaign in the first month.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rosemary. So we look forward to tomorrow then hearing about the display and then also hearing about the video advertising.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Have a
Rosemary.
lovely day. Remember, you can get all this information by just going to, what's it again, Rosemary?
co/Grow Africa. Or just rise
/Grow Africa.
Or just Google Rise Up Google.
All right.
And you'll see the link to the Grow 2.0 hub.
Asante sana. Have a good day.
And you too.
22 minutes after 9. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather, and then conversations continue. Remember, if you've got any questions regarding how you can take advantage of all these Google platforms, all you need to do is write to us, Spice of MKE, on Facebook, on Twitter, or you can call us tomorrow morning, 0719-012-600. You can find all this information that we've been having, the conversations that we've been having with Rosemary on our YouTube channel, Spice of MKE. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-bellied people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know.
Yeah.
She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you
And
used to do?
women are guilty about that.
The weather with Spice FM.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, currently at 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 23 today and lows of 17. It's also mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 19, highs of 23 and lows of 14 today. 18 degrees in Nyeri at the moment, highs of 22 and lows of 13. And mostly cloudy conditions giving way to rain. Looks like the rain will come through anytime in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy at 17, highs of 22 and lows of 12. Light rain going down now in Kisumu at 21. The highs will be 26 and lows of 18. Kakamega is mostly cloudy at 21, highs of 25 and lows of 14. Mombasa is raining at the moment, highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's mostly cloudy in Malindi at 21, highs of 23 and lows of 16. And cloudy in Kampala at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees. There's chance of rain very high this afternoon, highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's sunny in Joburg at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 17. Rain showers coming down in Lagos at 25 degrees. The high will be 31 and lows of 25. Light rain in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 23. The long rains continuing here in Beijing. There's still a haze over the city at 13, highs of 14 and lows of 8. Paris is mostly cloudy at 11 this morning. We'll see highs of 13 and lows of 9. And in London, it's 11 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 13. And finally for New York, coming into Monday morning, 12 degrees, partly cloudy, cooling down quite some with highs of 13 and lows of 5.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Conversation continues, CT.
Yes, let me begin with the proverb. Ears that do not listen accompany the head when it is chopped off. Now, as usually you ask me what it is that these proverbs mean, and all I give is a perspective, because proverbs tend to be, they're subject to interpretation as to what it is they mean to the listener or the hearer. Now,
the hearer.
Yes, the hearer of the word, yes. And hopefully the doer of the word.
The carrier of the ear.
Yes. Now, a lot of what we call lessons learned in life can be actually referred to as proverbial. Okay. Now, the proverbial lesson that we seem to be experiencing in Kenya right now is a very simple one. How it is, in fact, we have the manual, we wrote the handbook, how to ensure that your citizens benefit the very least from your government. Yes, that seems to be the manual. Because everything that we hear, it's not do. The hearing is often is often interspersed with things that happen and you say, this is actually happening. But by and large, the manual for ensuring you talk what you're supposed to do, we wrote it. It is ours, we own it, and we can even have a patent on it. Yes. So, guess what? When the ear that doesn't hear,
time for the head to go, the ear will accompany it.
And I want to turn that around and say that also, even for the ear that doesn't hear when you see bad governance and leadership taking place over and over, even you will go. And I'm not saying because somebody's going to get rid of you. I'm saying essentially it's going to corrode to the point whereby you have an apathetic people who anything goes, just goes. They'll come and be able to do whatever they want with you and nobody's going to be asking any questions. Looking at the part of questioning authority, and I look at the way in which Kenyans face the government. For the longest time, it has always been that the way in which Kenyans don't ask questions, don't push, don't fight against things that are going wrong. I liken it to the way that in my culture, you are never supposed to question authority. Because somebody is older than you, whatever they say is gospel truth. And that you questioning it is likened to disrespect. But that over time has changed, because you'll find some people, by virtue of the fact that they're older than you, saying some of the stupidest things. But because they're older than you actually do not question it, because you're trying to maintain that element of respect. That people don't know that because your government is doing 1, 2, 3 things, you cannot open your mouth and speak. You cannot voice out your frustrations. You cannot come together because you're afraid or living under some kind of imagined or even real cloud that says you cannot poke through this cloud because something will happen to you. Number one. Or you cannot poke through this cloud because you're almost sure that you will make noise from here until eternity and nothing will actually change. But I'm saying today that it is actually possible for voices to come together, to continue to speak out against, number one, injustices that are done, to continue to speak out against things like government apathy when it comes to doing the right thing, to continue to speak against things like corruption and impunity. Because what are the results of that? People are dead. People are dying. You have hospitals whereby you don't have the facilities that you need, not because you don't have the resource, but because somebody has taken the responsibility that they have, thrown it out the window, and brought in their own self-interest and decided to do something about that, and not about the people over which they're supposed to be governing and helping and developing. It is time, unless, of course, people don't feel it to the point whereby it's doing your body somehow, because that's
Actually,
the only way.
When you're accustomed to juggling things, even things that endanger your life will be juggled and will be prioritized, meaning this one is not priority one. For instance, we have spoken about the priority that people give to health. It's not priority one. No. These are resources you have, and you want to determine which one has bigger priority, not health. You'll think about food. Food, of course, accompanies health. You'll think about shelter, basic needs. Yeah, okay. And maybe safety even comes later. But safety comes in that you'll have a structure that you live in.
So I deal with tangible things.
The things
food I can get, I can hold,
and I need it, because you know exactly if I don't eat, what's going to happen to me.
And I know where I can get it.
Yes, and I need a place where I can lay my head down. A room, so long as it's adequate. Security comes later. But if you look at the basics that people have, in fact, we will ask our listeners to tell us how they prioritize their lives. What comes first? Most people tell you children. You ask the mother of the home, they'll say children. You ask the father of the home, they'll say children.
Children, what do you mean? Getting children or the welfare of the children?
The welfare of the children if they have it.
Okay.
Yes. And having children is also a priority, because a lot of people in our communities are actually judged by the children they have or the lack of children they have. Okay? I say this tongue in cheek because very rarely do you hear a man saying that priority is his wife, or vice versa, the wife saying the priority is
the husband.
Yes. So it looks like the children are the lovely buffer. So that's the meeting point where we can meet. Now, what is the meeting point for the citizenry and those they have elected to rule over them? What is our meeting point? Because everyone will tell you that these people never tell you the truth. That is not true. They do tell you the truth.
I keep begging you. They're showing you what they think of you. If there's anything that they've said to you that you should believe, it is this. In terms of priority and how they regard you as Kenyans, as citizens of this country, in terms of how they have put you on that list, it is the thing that they will tell you that you don't have to go and seek further reference about. This is how you are regarded. You who took your time to go and mark a ballot. You who took your time and said, I'm going to go and listen to what this individual is going to say. You who have taken all your hopes, not some, all. You've put them all in one place and you have put them upon these individuals and say, please do for us what I, as myself, cannot do. So all of us have come together and said, please go and do. The way they're showing you how, by this, because you ask yourself, we're talking about things that are philosophical. No. When we're talking about things like infrastructure, when we're talking about things like health, let's just look at two: health services and education in this country. The children that you talk about that need to be fostered, education. The health of yourself, you, to stay alive in case something happens to you. Just look at how they're taking two of those things and how seriously those two things are being regarded. When I tell you that how they take you, you should believe, look at the actions that would show towards that. Look at the mess that's going on in that 500,000 people, students that don't exist, are the ones that you continue to pay for year in, year out. And then you have still children who are sitting on the floor in this day and age on earth to read and go to school. And then you expect them to perform well. People who get sick today will get sick because of COVID and will most assuredly die if their symptoms are advanced, because they will not have a facility where they can go and get the medical services that they need. That is how their action translates into how they feel about you, how they regard you. If you want to know how they regard you, this is it. Believe it. It's there. Pop and plain. Pure sight. No mist. That's how they feel about you. And you have the opportunity to do something about it. But you're not angry enough. You're not fed up enough. It hasn't gotten to the point where it's doing something to you that's so serious that you say, let's do something about this. It hasn't. It hasn't. People are dying. People are getting lackluster education that you pay for on a daily basis. You're taxed to within an inch of your life, and then you don't demand the same. Why?
Habit formation is actually a very interesting aspect of human beings. When you talk about respect and how it is manifested in an African setting, it's with reason. Remember, all these things have reasons, and the reasons are usually historical. Prior to the encyclopedia, which was quickly followed by Google and other search engines, the search engine and Google were older people, because they are the ones who had all the experience. So they were a repository of knowledge. They're the people you went to. Now, we've carried on that tradition, rightfully so, even to the present day, because experientially, there are things that someone who has lived longer will know. That's just it. Now, if you look at how we adapt to it, usually we adapt to it because, one, we are born into it and we find it, or we've even seen benefits. There's nothing that drives people towards it in any direction more than benefit. Now, we're talking about politics and our leaders. Look at that trajectory of how we have evolved. What we have sacrificed at the altar of politics is truth. Meaning, it is something that it's not just intrinsic, it's not basic, it's not in and of itself. It is a tool. It's something you use and you twist and you turn and you panel beat to suit your purposes, depending on the situation, depending on the circumstances, depending on how you hope to benefit. For instance, whenever people want to popularize themselves and they choose to rile up and to rally people against other people, there may be truth to what they're saying, but the way they're going to go about saying it, there may even be reason, there may be no truth, but the way they're going to go, that's them manipulating this truth. That they have. Because if they actually looked at the truth and said, folks, this thing is actually this, without the manipulation, it'll have very different consequences. And then look at our case again, where it has morphed into now. We have taken it. It's sacrosanct. It is part of our culture. It's almost in the DNA. All right? There are things Kenyans will do without even batting an eyelid. We do not consider bribery to be wrong. It's not wrong. Why? We've euphemized it and given it, we call it chai, call it kitu kidogo, we call it opportunity creation. You just think of any list that you want. And you know why? It is because it makes life easier. Instead of being bothered, you will know, if I give a bribe here, this thing will move quicker. Now, I don't personally think that bribery is essentially wrong in every aspect of it, if you ask me. And I'll explain why. It isn't, not necessarily. When a child has taken something that they know or done something they shouldn't do, and they look at you, I'm talking about a smile, and they're smiling, they're bribing you. They're influencing you. Not to observe or to see what they have done by showing that they are pleasant.
Yeah.
It's something we learn to do from a very, very early stage in our lives. But now, this is where the bribery comes in. In our politics, it's actually negative and it's harmful. Because someone then decides that the only way they're going to stay in power is, one, you belittle the person whom you're competing with or who's the incumbent. Or, if it's at a national level, you make sure you find someone to blame for each and every problem, even the ones which you know very well you're the one who's created for yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And why people keep using it? Because it works. Now, Eric, look at the way we take sides in politics. Huh? And look at even the narrative that we've been looking at in today's papers. All right? We, the media, have decided that every political discussion in this country will revolve primarily between three people. Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Ruto. But it's even better if you pit Raila Odinga and William Ruto.
Against Ruto.
Yes.
And put 2022 somewhere in the horizon.
It's a narrative. It's a narrative because 2022 is a really long way off. And between now and even the end of 2021, we really have no clue what's going to happen. We think we have an idea. When people who are planning last year, did they know COVID was going to come? No, they did not.
They did not know. But then when you talk about we the citizens and whether we the citizens are angry enough, I think we have very many examples of when citizens get fed up with something and they take action. Especially if you look at matters of infrastructure. You hear very many times when citizens have come together and they have planted bananas on a road because they are demanding that this road be carpeted.
Kasarani Mwiki Road.
Yes. Or many other parts of the country. You actually see demonstrations, periodic demonstrations because of a road or state of insecurity, and they're demanding, we want a police station here, we want a police post to be put up here, we want action to be taken because there is rising insecurity. We see that happening. School not performing, we see action being taken by the local community on what they want. They demonstrate, they carry twigs, they even bring the kids along and they say carry twigs, and we're demanding that action be taken. If they want to blame the headmaster, they say this headmaster must go now, tonight. I've never seen any demonstration about health facilities. I'm not sure I have.
No,
even in cases where you know that people, you went and you spent 6 months or 3 months or even 3 weeks in a hospital and you shared a bed, or you slept on the floor, or you had a relative who went and was sleeping on the floor in a hospital. They were not able to get services. In fact, you had to send somebody, a relative, to go with them because that's the person who would be able to get them food, to be able to change them because they need to be regularly changed and cleaned and even tanned because they can't tan him. People will do all those things, but you will not hear any reaction against what they are doing or what is happening to them. Why is it? Is it that we get to a point where we believed for a long time that health is our thing, so we just do our thing?
Yeah, I think
This is just infrastructure. There's a building that we go to, and then there are doctors who will come, but we are going to do it ourselves. We will contribute to pay the bills. We will send a relative to go and be with this relative who's sick to take care of them while in hospital, and yet they are nurses. We will be knowing that, yes, we need to take a karai. We need to, in fact, every day there's somebody who's on duty to go with a flask of tea, with a flask of food to go and feed this person in hospital. And we do not make noise about it.
I think it because it is because it is personal. Personal to the sense that you are the one who is unwell, or it is a member of your family. There's a notion that, okay, so what I need to do what I need to do to make sure that I am well, or this individual then gets well, without taking to realization that this environment that needs to have been prepared so conducive that whatever it is that you're looking for, regardless of the fact that you're contributing towards it, is the responsibility of the government that you're led by. We've removed ourselves from that.
So basically,
reality.
we've detached the government from health
completely
This is
on
what
a
we've
personal
done.
level.